Hello, good morning and welcome. It is the first ever edition of the Scheldeprijs. Exciting day. Flanders Classics finally adding the Scheldeprijs to their full range of races, which is great to see. 136.2 kilometers today, and the weather is absolutely grim for the riders. 4 degrees Celsius, as you can see, 30 km/h. Westerly winds with gusts of 56 to 61 kilometers an hour. We had wintry showers overnight. The riders are all huddled up against the cold. As you can imagine, it's going to be a day of big rain jackets and everything that they can to keep themselves warm throughout today's race. Thanks for your company. We're going to be bringing you pretty much, not far off most of Scheldeprijs today. Martin McDonald and Danny Rowe with you to take you through today's race action. 86 kilometers will be followed by 3 laps of a 16.7 kilometer circuit. The riders down on the start. The Canyon SRAM team, strong team that they've got here in this one today. Some interesting young riders, Neve Bradbury, Ella Harris, both in there with Alice Barnes and Lisa Kleis. Someone that won't mind the cold is Sana Kant, cyclocross legend that she is. You're also going to see a lot of teams, if you've been with us throughout the season. There's another cyclocross star, Marion Norbert Riberola, former world under-23 cyclocross champion. She's with the Rupel cleaning team. She races normally on the cyclocross for Star Casino. New signing there for Coop in the centre, Emma Bogard, younger sister of Micah Bogard. The GT Crush Tunap team with Danny Kangeveld. If you were with us for the Healthy Aging Tour, you'll remember that one when Danny almost snatched the first stage right under the noses of the sprinters. And you can see a wintry rollout. Some of your other teams you're going to see in action today. You got Valcar Travel and Service, teams such as Parkertel, Valkenburg. The Plantapura team, unfortunately, without Yara Castelline today. Unfortunately, the cyclocross rider from Plantapura dislocating her shoulder and some injuries after that crash in the Ronde van Vlaanderen at the weekend. The flag, the rollouts for the riders, the whistle blowed, and then they were off and racing. And Canyon SRAM and Sarah Tizet WNT have been very much to the front of this one. Sana Kant there, you can see just with the buff over her face, and Movistar have been on the front for quite a bit already today. Danny, it's a pretty brutal day for the riders.
It's really brutal out there, and you can see the winds causing havoc already. Alice Barnes has just swung off from the front ahead of Lisa Klein and Emma Norsgaard from Movistar. This is a section that is absolutely vital in this race, and this is the parkour.
It is. So as they roll out of the start in Schotten, they'll have a wind coming from their left shoulder up towards Hoogstraten, where they'll have a tailwind, crosswind from the right, little cross headwind, and then that crosswind for the right as they head down towards what we have 2 cobbled sections, the St. Jovenstick and the Broekstraat, and then they finish today with 3 local laps of 16.7 kilometers. Take the profile in the top right-hand corner with a little pinch of salt. It's pretty flat, this one, Danny, today, and we can see now that the pressure that the likes of Lisa Klein and Lisa Brennauer here on the front have been pretty much applying. We've got Lorena Wiebes in here as well. This pressure that they've had on for some time before we came on air, now starting to come to fruition. The Scheldeprijs, the men's classic, very much a lot of the time looked on as a sprinters classic, but as we saw in the OxyClean Classic of Brugge de Panne, not the case, and looks like Amelie Deirdrikson's made it in here as well for Trek Segafredo.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the key players have made this move, Marty, and that was down to the combination of effort from Movistar and Canyon SRAM. You could see Lorena Wiebes has also made it in there from Team DSM. She's on my list as one of the favourites as well today. But Emma Norsgaard Jørgensen, what an amazing start to the season she's had. The 21-year-old from Denmark has picked up so many good results. Second in Het Nieuwsblad, second in La Semaine. and second in the OxyClean Classic as well. And she was very vocal about talking about working for Van Vleuten in Flanders, and I think today it's back to her as leader. But you can see this group now, they've got a good lead. There's still a long way to go, but this is a chance to really whittle down the peloton. Alice Barnes going through there on the right hand side, and riders really struggling to stay in the front of this peloton.
They are indeed. Danielle Campbell just getting onto the back there for Team Bike Exchange. So good to see the rider from Trinidad and Tobago, who really has been turning herself inside out so far this season in working for the team. And for me today, Danny, it was one of these days, this sort of race, the Scheldeprijs, when we look at the Ronde van Vlaanderen and the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and all of these races where we've seen Danielle up there and working for the team, you look at these sort of races, and these are the races, especially for a team like Bike Exchange, where they do start to give the nod to a rider like Danielle and say, right, okay, you've earned your stripes. You've been on the front throughout the season. She's finished every race that she's started so far this year, and these are the days potentially where they go, right, let's give them a run out. Let's see what they can do.
Absolutely, Marty, and like you said, it's a great opportunity for riders like Danielle, who's had a fantastic start. She's really worked so hard for the team. She's been so consistent at the front of the peloton, so aggressive, and this is the type of race that she could be allowed to go for a result for herself, or even have the team behind her. They do have riders like Sarah Roy as well in this race, but I guess they could even be joint leaders today. And again, as well as Danielle, it's the opportunity for the smaller teams as well to really get a good result. We're missing teams like SD Works today, and that will change the dynamic of the race, and it will give the lesser teams a bit of confidence to take the race on themselves and again see what they can do. It's really exciting. It's obviously the first ever women's Scheldeprijs as well, and that's a really special thing, and really special to take that first win of the first ever edition of a race as well is really motivating in itself. So I think a lot of girls out there today will be really up for this special race.
Sarah Martin has also made that front split in for Team Movistar. I think I've also caught a glimpse of Barbara Guariski. Let's run you through all your teams so that you know who you're watching out today. We're 110 kilometers to go, so you're going to see plenty of the race action today, plenty of watching the race unfold, which is always interesting in itself. And you can see from this long shot, looking down the road now, the weather, the wind, and everything that we said the riders were going to have to contend with today. You can see already just punching holes in the peloton. It's really splitting this group. You can see British champion there, Alice Barnes, who's there in that white jersey. Good to see her up there and making that split. Is this Elisa Balsamo that's on the back as well? It is. Good to see Elisa Balsamo in there as well for Valcar Travel and Service. So she's made it into this group. So we're pointing out our teams as we go through there. So some of the teams that you might not have seen yet. So we got Bingold Casino Chevalmier with Kelly Droitz, Plantapura, seen plenty of them. I did have Lara Susamil earmarked as a potential sprinter for that team today, but for you cyclocross fans, Manon Bakker, Sana Kant, who you've seen already, Julie De Wilde, Marta Troyen and Annie van Alphen, all in the team. Dolcini Van Eyck, Katrin Schweinberger, the Austrian national champion, good rider from them. Lotto Soudal with the likes of Jessie van der Bolke, Abby May Parkinson for British fans can follow Abby May. Multum Accountants, they're here. They've got Anne-Sophie Duyken there as well. Marika de Schmet, who's a good sprinter for Multum Accountants. Andy Schleck Racing. I can't see any of the Andy Schleck riders in this group. Aon Monex, they are in the race as well. Are Aon Monex with the likes of Elena Sierra and Jade Tiolis. We got Arkea with Pauline Alin and Gladys Vohols. Not seeing the any Arkea colours in here at the moment. Aroma Italia Basso are also in the Team B Pink. I hear Buscaya Durango with Lizzie Holden and Sandra Alonso. Ceratiz at WNT, Lisa Brennauer we're seeing in the breakaway group. She's got Catherine Hammes, Maria Julia Confalonieri, Marta Lack, Leoline Tutenberg and Sarah Rikers. Coop are here with 4 riders. Drops Lacole, they've got 2 riders in that breakaway group with Emily Moberg and Micah van der Down. The GT Crush, we saw them on the rollout. Isomout Premac Vittoria, Femke Marcus from Parkertel Valkenburg, getting rid of the rain jacket here. She's in this front split. Good to see her getting up there as well. LVIV with the likes of Bronwyn McGregor from New Zealand. We've got Massey Tactic, Vita Heine, Next G Racing. We've got the sprinter there, Charlotte Cool, and then Femke Marcus from Parkertel Valkenburg. And yeah, with Rupert Cleaning and Varkar Travel and Service, pretty much all of our teams. But it looks like this front split already, 22 seconds is your time gap. And good to see Femke Marcus from Parkertel Valkenburg getting up there. And already, Danny, even despite the weather, getting into that front split, you do start to warm up really quickly, don't you, despite the weather conditions?
You do, yeah. You can see the groups working really well together, and it just means that they'll keep tapping through. And obviously with the effort that they're making, that will heat their bodies up. I think this group would have almost breathed a sigh of relief to be in this group and to have made this front split. It's really, really hard when you don't make a split like this to try and motivate the other teams to try and get back. There'll only be a handful of teams that have missed this move, and the chances are they haven't got the strength and depth to be able to bring a move like this back. I think these riders who have made this split are going to be really motivated to keep driving this forward. You can see Team DSM have got their top sprinter in Lorena Wiebes. Canyon SRAM have got their sprinter in Alice Barnes. Movistar have with Emma Jorgensen. So I do think it's going to be really tough to bring this move back, and there's still over 100 kilometers to go, so it's going to be a long day out for this group, but again, I think they're going to be super keen to keep this going.
Trek Segafredo, unfortunately, just with Audrey Cordon-Rago, Letizia Paternoster, Sharon Van Anrooy and Amelie Deirdrickson today. They had a COVID positive for Chloe Hosking, apparently, we've heard. And a late BTC Ljubljana not in the race. They're out of the race for the same reason. 30 seconds is the gap with 106 kilometers to go. So it's really thinning out here is this race with this group. So at the moment we've got Lisa Klein, Lisa Brennauer, Tenya Campbell, Lorena Wiebes, Barbara Gorishi, Emily Moberg, Alice Barnes, Micah van der Down, Sarah Martin, Femke Marcus, Elisa Balsamo, all amongst that front group. Amelie Deirdrickson for the Trek Segafredo team is in there, and then we'll just get an idea. We've got DMSM, we've got three riders in here for Team DSM today, and Team DSM started with Lorena Wiebes, Susanne Anderson, Pfeiffer Georgie, Vilma Olausson, Esme Pepperkamp and Julia Suk. Those are the makeup of the riders from DSM, and we know that we did see that Lorena Wiebes was in there. It's always one of those days as well, isn't it, Danny, when everyone's wrapped up against the cold and they've got their big rain jackets on and everything as well. So it does make it difficult sometimes to really pick everyone out.
Yeah, it does, Marty. Everyone's got their rain jackets on, cover shoes, and again for the riders, it's a really tough task in the morning. And I remember when I was racing, you would ask, "What are you going to wear?" Because it's really important, you know. As much as it's really cold, you don't want to overheat either, especially if you're in a move like this today. And you can see the likes of Lisa Brennauer, who's got a full rain jacket. It looks like a Gabba on, which is really, really warm, full leg warmers, overshoes, and there's that balance between staying warm and not overheating. Thankfully, a lot of riders are confident enough to go back to their team car to take layers off, but for some riders they won't have that confidence, so to get their layering right at the beginning of the race is really, really important. But I actually messaged Luke Rowe, my brother-in-law, about this race, obviously with it being the first edition of the women's race, just to ask him his thoughts on the race. And he just told me about how the course has changed from a few years ago, and now it goes a lot more in Holland and Zealand, which means for more crosswinds, and that's exactly what we've seen, obviously, with this peloton splitting already in the first 30 kilometres of the race. He said there's always crashes in this race. Obviously, with today's weather, there could be even more crashes with the rain, making it more slippery, obviously, underneath. And then it's always a big one for the sprinters. I think Cav's won it 3 times. And there's cobbles in the finishing lap. So it really has got a bit of everything, Marty. And like we saw in Depana with Grace Brown taking the win, that was not predictable in a race like Depana. So I think that's what makes women's racing so exciting. It's just really unpredictable, and anything can happen. We could see this group go all the way to the finish. We could see it come back, multiple different attacks, a solo winner, or even a big bunch sprint. So it's just super exciting. You can see the group there in the distance.
Yeah, good to see them trying to. And again, in a race like this, where we do look at a flat race like this, and you can see how wintry and how cold it is, and when you're in this position, long day like this, is it warmer sometimes to be out there in the breakaway like this and having a workout rather than just kind of huddled together in the peloton?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think because you're in that group ahead as well, you're so focused, and I think being focused almost takes your mind off the cold as well. You can see Femke Marcus now coming to the front. She's the sister of Rihanna Marcus, who rides for Team Jumbo-Visma. I rode with in Wow Deals in my last year of racing. I can see Natalie Van Gogh as well in there, another rider, super experienced. So you can see the riders trying to communicate now and really work together as a unit to try and keep this together. It's hovering now, the gap at around 20-25 seconds, so it's not going up. This group behind's obviously keen to get this move back.
Yeah, they really have to. They have got to get it organised. We can't quite see at the moment who's really got this organised to try and bring this one back together. Plenty of teams really represented at the front. If you are just getting on board today, welcome. It is the first edition of the Scheldeprijs, starting and finishing in Schoten. Today we're in this Antwerp region, and we're heading out. We go past a few famous, again, so we see Sana Kant on the back there, a few famous cyclocross venues with Loonhout, Hoogstraten and places like that. Right, a crosswind coming from the left. We got a couple of sections of cobblestones before we have 3 laps of 16.7 kilometre finishing circuit. So they hit the line after 86 kilometres, and then they have those 3 laps of the circuit to finish things off today. Emma Norsgaard coming through to the front for Team Movistar. So she's made this group, so it's a real, and there's Amelie Deirdrickson coming through as well. Good to see Amelie in there as well. Hasn't quite looked like herself so far this season, Amelie, but good to see her in this move today.
Yeah, it's really good to see her, and I think it's really tough for Amelie as well, trying to juggle both the track and the road. A few riders are being able to do it, and I think over the years it's become even harder with the 2 disciplines being almost different sports with different training. They have to be trained for in totally different ways. The track is becoming so fast and almost more of a pure sprinters event, and with the women's racing increasing over the length, you know, it's calling for even more endurance training to be a part of the riders program. So I think it's really tough for riders who are having to juggle the both to do them both, you know, and get world-class results. And I think we've seen that with riders like Kirsten Wild as well. She really has put all her eggs into the track basket, and she's doing it phenomenally well with, you know, world champion victories in the Omnium, and we just haven't seen her quite at her best on the road. And I do think it comes down to that, you know, real change in discipline, and it's almost like 2 different sports.
Oh, You heard that one go there, didn't we?
We did,
unfortunately,
yeah.
that was if you ever hear Alana Kastrik there, I was just about to say what was that, and then you see Alana here just front wheel puncture. That went quite quickly. Did that one. Just on that corner, the Lotte Sydal rider. And still that gap, 27 seconds up to that leading split, we would call it now, of some of the big names in today's race. Quite different now, isn't it, seeing a quick release and rim brakes?
It is, and this is painfully slow, actually, this wheel change, and it's really important for the riders to be able to... Oh, maybe a retiree, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh, calling it a day.
Yeah, it's always a shame to see. I think it's a real tough one. That's interesting. I think the mechanic was starting to change it, and then decided that actually no, I'm done.
Indeed, is that Pfeiffer Georgie that's in here as well for DSM? It does look like Pfeiffer. Looking at that, okay, we'll have a. There's the group in the background, so you can see the two Drops-Le-Col riders. I think this is Esme Pepperkamp, who's the other DSM rider, but we'll get a closer look. Lisa Brennauer just having a little bit of a chat as she comes through. Just an experienced rider is Lisa Brennauer. What a season she is having so far. Second in Ronde van Vlaanderen, third in Gent-Wevelgem, second on the GC in the Healthy Aging Tour, seventh in Umloop Het Nieuwsblad. And she was the rider, wasn't she, that no one wanted to take Lisa Brennauer to the finish the other day.
No, they didn't. It was really interesting, actually, listening to the interviews of that group behind. It was Elisa Longo Borghini, actually, that said that she'd been given instruction not to work because of Lisa Brennauer being in that group. And it's a really hard one to call on the road when you find yourself in a break with one fantastic sprinter and there's another rider up the road like Van Vleuten. What to do about it? Do you completely collaborate as a group to bring that one rider back, or do you risk it and then try and counter-attack if and when it comes back? So Elisa had been told not to work, and unfortunately they never brought Van Vleuten back. But yeah, I think it's one of those, it's hindsight, isn't it, Marty? And unfortunately for Elisa or that group chasing, they never caught Van Vleuten back. And we saw how incredible Elisa Brennauer's sprint was. So the likelihood would have been that, like Elisa said, if they had brought Van Vleuten back, Lisa would have won it hands down if it had came to a bunch sprint. So always a tough one to call. Out of this group, though, I'd say that actually Lisa is not, head and shoulders above the rest, and there's actually probably riders like Emma Norsgaard as well, and Lorena Wiebes that could really come close or even beat a rider like Lisa Brennauer.
And I think that's what's been interesting to watch, especially when we think back to Oxyclean and the Brugge de Panau, when we see we had that breakaway group that had, and we look back to it, we had Grace Brown snatched it, and we said, that was like a raid that a Highland army would be proud of. That was a proper raid by Grace Brown in that one. But we had Emma Norsgaard, Jolien Dura, Lotte Kopecky, Elisa Balsamo, Kirsten Wild, Chloe Hosking, Alice Barnes, and Amy Peters, all in that group. They were as well. Lorena Wiebes came in 25 seconds down. But when you look at those races and look at this group that we've got here, you'd look at the likes of Lorena Wiebes and Amelie Deirdrickson and Alice Barnes and Elisa Balsamo, Lisa Brennauer, not afraid to get up there, get out into that group, and ride in a breakaway, rather than a race such as this, which is so flat, where you might think, do you know what, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to risk it all for that bunch sprint.
Yeah, that's really true, Marty, and I think it's important to, reiterate that even if you're a pure sprinter, you have to have the strength, the power, the technical aspects of bike riding to get yourself in these moves. You can see all the top sprinters are in this breakaway, and that's through an echelon. formation. So this actually does look like Emma Norsgaard Jorgensen coming back here from Movistar. Oh no, sorry, Alba. They look very similar, don't they, on the bike there. It's really hard sometimes to pick these riders out. There's a few that look like twins on the bike, but yeah, just a bike change for this Movistar rider. But going back to what I was talking about before, it's really important to have a complete skill set as a rider, even if you do focus on one aspect, whether it's climbing, whether it's being a pure sprinter. For example, if you're a pure climber, it's really, really important to be able to descend, because the likelihood is within a hilly race you're going to have really tricky descents. Oh, it is Emma Norse. I thought I was. Oh, well, I'm glad about that, because I did question myself there. So
yes,
that was Emma. So we're going to have
breakaway. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to have to see who that Movistar rider is in the breakaway. Yeah, really important for riders to focus on all aspects of bike riding, to be that complete world-class athlete.
Let's go back up to our lead group. They're still just off the front. We'll get a glimpse of the group behind. That Lisa Klein just starting to have a look around here, the Canyon SRAM rider. There's Elisa Balsamo in the centre. So we'll just, again, they're just having a little glance back. Danielle Campbell here for Team Bike Exchange, right in the centre. Plenty of Movistar jerseys in there. There's Sarah Martin. Barbara Gorishki are noted out of this group as well for Team Movistar. That's Gloria Rodriguez that's also in the group. Alice Barnes, British champion, just having a word with Lisa Klein as they go through. There's Elisa Balsamo, Danielle Campbell on the front. They'll be cheering in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a great ride here to make it into this group by Danielle, and a really fast sprinter is Danielle Campbell from Trinidad and Tobago. So we're expecting Team Bike Exchange, as they've always done, to start to give the young rider from Trinidad and Tobago her opportunity in these races. A real fast finisher, but already Danny showing that she's starting to develop that sort of vigilance within the team to make sure that she's got that breakaway covered, because that would be the team order from Bike Exchange, wouldn't it? Do not miss any splits. Make sure that we've got a rider in every breakaway that's got any dangerous riders in it.
Yeah, and that's the key. Generally, you're told as a bike rider, if you've got that role, if it's one rider, generally you can leave them. If it's two riders, okay, look who's in there, and if they're part of any of the really top teams, follow. And then if there's any more than three, to always follow, because that's when it gets dangerous in terms of the brake sticking. So for Danielle Campbell, she's done such a great job in all of these races to marshal the front. And it's really tough to even stay at the front of the peloton at all times, let alone be able to follow all of the moves. And generally it'll be two riders out of the 6 that you've got starting the race that are given this role, so that it's not one left all the time to follow, because it's just impossible if there's counter attacks, if it comes back and you're in a move, to go again. So generally there'll be 2 riders from the team that are given the role of following moves from the start of the race, and the other 3 are left then towards the back end of the race, or for different roles within the race. You can see that the peloton are closing in. We haven't been given any time gaps, but it just does look like the real motivation has slipped out of this group. A lot of heads turning to see where the group are, who's collaborating, potentially a little bit too of a bigger group, that riders are missing turns. Some riders now taking this opportunity in this front group to take on some fuel before the peloton catch the group. I just saw a glimpse of them behind there. So it seems like this is going to come back.
Potentially, because we did have one of our Movistar riders in our breakaway on the red bike, and I think that could be that. I think that Emma might have punctured out of this leading group, because they were in our defence of trying to pick everybody out. But potentially, because she's got that custom bike as well. But it does look like it's coming back. We've seen a few yellow jerseys on the front of the peloton, so it could be the likes of Aroma Italia and teams like that are deciding to try and bring this one back. So Jean Cabal on the back there for Arkea. She's been on some good form recently. The Arkea rider right here, wearing 133. She's a fairly fast finisher in her own right. There's Lisa Brennauer just on the front here for Ceratisit WNT, but it does look like the pressure is going out of this group completely now. Marcus just moved through here for Parker Tel Valkenburg. DSM all looking around at each other, having a bit of a chat. Alice Barnes looking comfortable. Alice has definitely, for me, come into this. She had that just got pipped by Jolene in that first stage of Healthy Aging Tour. But Alice has come into this season. Just looking a little bit super motivated this year, looking in really good form as Marcus now goes on the attack. Femke Marcus here for Parker Tel Valkenburg out of that leading group. So while everyone else has resigned themselves to the fact that they're about to get caught, the Parker Tel Valkenburg rider decides that she's going to go off on her own here. So 94 kilometers to go. And an exciting start to our coverage today. Lisa Klein having a glance back here. Bodes well.
It does, and this is actually quite a clever move from Femke Marcus. She doesn't look like now she's probably in full commitment. Now she's going into that aero tuck position to use this opportunity when this group know they're going to be caught. You know, the pressure's come out of it. There probably will be counter attacks when the group does come back. But Femke's taken the opportunity to attack, and no one was keen to chase there. So good move there from the young Dutch rider. Again, sisters with Rihanna Marcus, so she's been brought up in a real cycling avid family. They've also speed skating. Their other sister is a world-class speed skater, so a real sport fanatic. But it does look like actually she's decided that wasn't the right time to go, and the group is now back in one piece.
I think she was hoping that someone would come with her there. 94k on your own in this weather is you've got to be fairly brave. I think is a good description of if you're going to go solo from here on your own.
Agree.
Sarnakant on the back here for Plantapura as the cyclocross riders really start to gel together, and they can see that the cameras with Martha Troyan just wearing 75 teammate. So I know I do have to apologise that I do get being the cyclocross commentator on Eurosport GCM and Jeremy Powers Winter. Have to excuse my giddy excitement at seeing all of these riders in this team together. So I do apologise. Monique Deniglo in the centre there for Bike Exchange. So everything under control. Abby May Parkinson in the red jersey there for Lotto Soudal. DSM with Suzanne Anderson here, just directing everything there for Team DSM. And the next G team, there's Alice Barnes, still just sat quite close to the front now. Is Alice? So it all changed. So if you are just tuning in, we've got 93k to go here in the first edition of the Scheldeprijs as Emma punctured again.
It's bad luck if she has. She's not having a good day, is she? She's back in the car again.
Oh, she wants her other bike
change.
So the mechanics potentially been out the window fixing that one. So it does happen, and when you're back there in the car, and sometimes you can kind of watch these races, and you see a rider change bikes, and then you see a rider change bikes again. And when you're in the car, if you've got a special bike like this, you're on it all the time, aren't you? And even your spare bike can feel slightly different. So the mechanic sometimes has probably the Movistar mechanics done there, has been out the window trying to fix whatever issue that Emma Norsgaard has had with her bike. And it's like a comfy pair of shoes though, isn't it? Your special bike.
It really, really is. You've hit the nail on the head there, Marty. Your spare bike just never, ever feels the same, whether it's literally millimetre perfect to the setup of your preferred race bike. It's never, ever the same. So that's exactly what's happened there. Emma's been told by the DS or the mechanic that the bike is ready and it's been fixed. and she's obviously chosen the right moment where the peloton has come back together to go back to the car to get back in her comfy shoes or on her comfy bike to finish a race, especially for a rider like Emma, who is definitely one of the favourites for today. I think it's even more important for her to be confident and comfortable on her preferred bike. I was always the same with me. I think riders there's quite two types of riders. A rider that can deal with tweaks to their bike, one that's always making changes to their saddle height or their cleat position or their handlebars, and then other riders who, like myself, would the slightest change would really I could really feel it, and then mentally it would really affect me that my bike position wasn't right. So yeah, obviously for Emma, she wants to get back onto that bike.
Yeah, it can be things as well, such as how worn in your saddle can be, because even, you know, if a saddle you're not sitting on all the time, if it's a saddle that's not done a few thousand kilometers, it's only done maybe a couple of hundred, but that's very, very key, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, that's probably the most key part of it, to be honest. Yeah, like you say, if you've been sat on a saddle for a few thousand kilometers, or 1,000 kilometers, it's a lot spongier than a spare bike potentially that's hardly been sat on, and that can really affect how the whole bike then feels. Also, pedals, you're clicking in and out of pedals every day, countless times if you're just training and you're stopping at traffic lights, so they can feel tighter, and that can totally throw you out. And it sounds like such minor adjustments to, your standard bike rider that potentially rides 3 times a week. But for these girls, it's their job, and they're on their bikes for hours every single day. So those sort of tweaks can be really vital.
Is this Chiara Consoni that's looking for a spare?
Yeah,
so
it does look like.
Yeah, Valcar Travel and Service. She's going back onto her preferred bike as well. Interesting rider, and someone that we've got to watch out for today is Chiara Consoni. And she had a win earlier on in the week, and she's a great sprinter. She's just 21. She won the Ronde van Mouscron on Easter Monday, and we've been talking about siblings, but her brother is Simone Consoni, if anyone follows cycling closely. And there's a lot of siblings, isn't there, out there, because Emma Norsgaard's brother Matthias, right, he's on the men's Movistar team as well. But for me, Chiara, she's a very exciting rider. She's great lead out rider for Elisa Balsamo, but comes from Bergamo, which is a real cycling hotbed. She's been a world junior champion on the track. She's part of that sort of group of riders that kind of exploded onto the track scene, wasn't she, as juniors, this sort of Italian team, and there was a whole group of them, and they're now starting to hit that sort of 21 years old mark now. We're starting to get some moves again off the front here. Good to see Drops Lacole getting in on the action. Lisa Klein just marshalling that one. Chiara, though, today could be a good one if it comes down to a sprint, because we do always look at Elisa Balsamo.
Yeah, definitely, and like we said, she won the last race, Mouscron, only this week, so she's obviously on good form, and that will help her confidence as well, especially in a race like today where we have potentially a lesser standard of field. We don't have SD Works in this race, but for Chiara, I remember in 2019 where she won stage 5 of the Bowls Ladies Tour, she was so surprised, and I think from then on she's kind of really found that belief in herself. She was only 19 when she won that stage, and the Bowls Ladies Tour is one of the best, biggest stage races for women. So that was a fantastic victory, and again, I think she's definitely one to look out for in the future. The Italians really work well together from a young age. They're always up there in the World Championships. They really work together as a unit. And you can really see that, especially like from a rider like Chiara Consoni. And I think the Valcar Travel and Service team are one that have a really professional makeup. You can see here the two riders are helping each other get back to the front, and it's really, really important in women's racing now to have that team dynamic and work together as a team. You know, the standard of racing has improved so much that you just can't ride on your own. And I think I've mentioned this in a couple of races, but I think it's really important that the standard of women's racing is going from strength to strength, and the riders now are getting more than just a one-year contract, and it's just so important. I think back in the day, or when I first started racing, you know, the girls were so worried about their own contracts for the next year that actually they might not give 100% to their team role, because they were just so worried about, you know, their livelihood and their chance to ride for the next year. So I think with that changing, it's just given, you know, women's racing a chance to really grow and develop, because the riders have got those couple of year contracts. They're happy and they're confident in their teams to be able to really sacrifice themselves for their leaders, and it doesn't matter that, you know, they get dropped or they're last. And I think that's what you see on the men's side a lot, you know, especially, again, talking about my brother-in-law Luke Rowe, for example. He is one of the best domestics on the men's side, and I remember, you know, seeing the results. He got the last place in the Tour de France, but actually he did one of the best jobs, you know, in that peloton, because he did the job for his team. And I think that's what we're seeing in women's racing. Absolutely superb domestic riders now that are almost finding themselves, you know, in that role. A rider like Christine Margeroux, who I know does get the opportunity for herself and has won a race this year, but she's been part of the Bowles-Dolman setup for years and years now, and that's just purely down to how well she works as a team. So it's just great to see the strength and the growth of women's cycling, and also, you know, like, you know, we're commentating now from line to line. It's just fantastic, and I think, you know, I feel privileged to be a part of this this growth for the sport, because I think it really does deserve it.
I think what was interesting there as well, when you see Silvia Zanardi here, and she's another former world junior track champion. She's in that sort of that group, along with the likes of Chiara Consoni. She was, you know, she's been a world champion in the junior in the points race. She's world champion in the team pursuit. But just the dynamic and the chat there as well, back at the team car, just chatting to the director sportif, and we are as well. We're seeing it in women's cycling now as well, and they've got Sigrid Corneo in the car, but we're seeing it, and we'll see it with SD Works next year with the likes of Anna van der Breggen. We're seeing it with Ina Teutenberg and Giorgia Bronzini, and a lot more. We're seeing as well a lot more, and it's important for the sport that our top champions, and they've got female director sportifs in the cars as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really, really important. And I think for a team like Trek Segafredo, you know, you've got Ina Teutenberg and Giorgia Bronzini, who are part of that squad now, and you can see how, you know, they've gone from strength to strength as a team. We know that Anna van der Breggen and Chantal van der Broek-Black are retiring at the end of this year, and they're coming back into the sport. And I think, you know, that's only going to enhance it again. You know, the riders have been there and done it, and the female sportif, the female DSs, sorry, really understand women, you know, as a different to men's, whether that's through training. Obviously for me as a coach as well, females respond differently to different training. They have their menstrual cycles, and you know, that comes with different challenges along the way as well. So yeah, I think for girls to have female DSs is fantastic, and really comes as a sort of extra understanding. We're seeing Sarah Roy now coming to the front for Bike Exchange, another super experienced rider. I was really pleased to see her take the Australian national title this year. It looks like it's heating up at the front of the peloton.
It is indeed. Sarah Roy, popular rider around the world is Roy, as Abby May Parkinson still very much to the front today for Lotto Soudal. We got the Canyon SRAM team. They've got a couple of really interesting riders in there. Have Canyon SRAM in the likes of Neve Bradbury and Ella Harris.
They have, Marty, and they've actually come from the Zwift Academy, and that's such a fantastic initiative as well, to find talent through Zwift. And I was actually reading an article about Neve Bradbury, who's come from lockdown to the World Tour She's from Melbourne. She was doing a lot of her training on an indoor turbo trainer because of obviously the restrictions due to COVID and not being able to ride more than 5 miles away from her house. And I think she got a message from a friend to say, are you going for this? Which was the Zwift Academy. And she's ended up going through and winning a contract with the Canyon SRAM team. And that's what we saw with Ella Harris as well a couple of years ago. And it's just a brilliant way to, you know, find this talent. You can see Tinelle Campbell now again coming to the front for Team Bike Exchange. But again, such an opportunity, especially for riders from, you know, Australia and New Zealand who potentially haven't got that support to be able to get to Europe and get themselves into these World Tour teams and get that opportunity.
You can see it's exposed when you start to see the fields, isn't it, and the trees start to clear, and then you start to see Canyon SRAM and Movistar, and you see Emma Norsgaard now back on that red bike, her Danish champions bike. You see the Bike Exchange jerseys, you see the DSM jerseys, they're all coming to the front, and it's what makes it as a pro rider. And you saw Sarah Roy coming up towards the front, and she would have been on the radio, and you work closely with your DS in the car, don't you? Because the behind, they're going, right, you're going to turn right here, you're going to come through an exposed section. And as a sport director, you know, I'm slightly obsessed with weather maps, and there's some great like live wind maps that you can see, and you can actually zoom in, you know exactly when the wind is going to change. You can get it, you know, you work closely with the mechanics in the car to sort of feed that into the riders. All crashed down here, so riders here under the pressure of the crosswinds just going down. Everyone just trying to pull themselves out. This is Esme Pepperkamp here. They've just got to separate the bikes, and she's gone down here. Kelly van der Steen from Bingo Chevam, yeah. So you just got to check yourself over, check your bike over. So Esme Pepperkamp gets herself up. So hopefully Kelly van der Steen can carry on. Also got there Nora Jančeškova. You just have to, you know, as a rider as well, got to take that time, haven't you, to just make sure if you are going to continue that you are okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well with things like head injuries, it's becoming a lot more, yeah, it's so important to make sure you are okay. But you know, there's always crashes in races like today, especially at moments like this where, you know, you can see how much pressure now is at the front of this peloton. The roads are wet, the road furniture, you can see riders going the different ways around the roundabouts, trying to find the best way to get to the front. It's Canyon SRAM again. Lisa Klein is on the front now, trying to split this race to pieces in the wind.
Oh, indeed, lots of shouting, lots of chat going on within the group. Do you always sort of Lisa Brennau here on the front in those bright yellow overshoes? Do you, when you're in this situation? Let's just have a look. We're just getting a replay of the crash, and it is just that as everything sort of thins out and stretches out at the back, isn't it? And you start to just get that ricochet effect, that touch of wheels as the wind direction changes and things.
Yeah, you can see the stress of riders there just trying to move up, and you know, riders turning right into the wind to try and get themselves in a better position, and that comes with touch of wheels and unfortunately crashes. And like you said, riders will not only communicate via radio, but before the race they would have, you know, done their research, and they'll have the information on their handlebars, so the critical moments where they might turn onto a more exposed road or a windier section of the race. So preparation is key, and obviously positioning is vital. And we're seeing the teams come together now, almost like your lead-out format for critical parts of the race. You see lead-outs throughout the race into different sections, different dangerous parts that could split.
Lisa Klein looks around the Valcar Travel and Service. There's the split now. You can see that the pressure again. If you weren't with us when we came on air, we did have a split early on, just as we came on air actually, and we had the likes of Lisa Klein, Lisa Brennau, Tanya Campbell, Lorena Wiebes, all up there in that front group with Balsamo, Deirdrickson. It came back together, it's split again, and it's the pink jerseys here of Valcar Travel and Service. They've got Vittoria Guazzini, Lisa Balsamo and Chiara Consoni in the team today. They really are developing so strongly as a team. And here we go, the pressure here from Team Bike Exchange. So good to see them now coming up towards the front. Is this Ariana Fidanza that's coming through here, I think, with Sarah Roy.
Yeah, it is Marty, and they've got a few different cards to play today, especially with Sarah Roy and Tanelle Campbell as well in their lineup. It just gives these riders, like you said, a real opportunity in a race like today to get a result for themselves. And I'd love to see, you know, what you could call an underdog take the win today, especially in the first ever edition of the women's version of the Scheldeprijs. Always makes it even more special, something that no one can ever take away from you. You know, to say I won the first ever edition of the race, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you get to come back next year, get that #1 on your back as well, which is always it's always a special moment as well. I imagine the next year when you go back and you get to pin that #1 on the back. If you weren't with us earlier as well, because of the weather conditions today, they did cancel the team presentation earlier on today as well, just to allow the riders to stay in the campus, stay in the cars, stay in the buses, and keep themselves nice and warm before the rollout. But we do have a second split now in the race. Lisa Brennauer very much to the front here for Sarah Tizet WNT, so vigilant as you would expect from a rider like Lisa Brennauer. Always likes it, seems as well for Lisa Brennauer as she's snap her up. She looks like she's one of the sport directors in the car behind, keeping an eye on that one at the side. Maybe one of the Swannies with the lunch, perhaps. It's a novel way to do the feeding in a race, isn't it?
It is indeed.
You hear the cars just moving up here, trying to get through. So Trek Segafredo, I think his car just moves up there.
Oh, it's always such a, scary times actually. And I'd say that was probably not a great time for that car to try and pass them. Cars can sometimes be so keen to move up, and actually it can be so dangerous for the riders. And it's, you know, the role of the people, the DSs driving the car, it's really important. And you know, we've seen some horrible incidents in the past, and you know, it's important for them to choose the right moment. I'd say that probably wasn't the best with that bollard there on the right and having to come in towards the peloton, but thankfully he got through safely, so we can breathe a sigh of relief there.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the most stressful things that you as a sport director trying to move up through the riders, and I always found as well in Belgium, because you're always going from wide roads to really narrow roads, and you kind of go up, and it's once the gap goes to a certain level, so normally 30 seconds they'll put the neutral service car in. Once you get to a minute, they'll then let you send the team car up, and you do get that kind of stress of, especially when you've got a rider, you might have a Lisa Brennauer or an Alice Barnes or an Elisa Balsamo or an Amelie Deirdrickson or someone like that, and you've got that stress of thinking, if they puncture or they have an issue and I'm not there, then it's my fault because I wasn't there, because I needed to be there. And it's kind of it's a different situation. So you've got to kind of, as you said, you've got to pick your moment, and you go up to the commissaire and you say, can I go up? And it is then, and on a windy day like this, it's so unpredictable, because all of a sudden a gust of wind, and you've got to think, right, okay, is it exposed? Are there buildings? Are the riders protected? Is there a corner ahead? Because you look here and you think, right, I'm going to have to go down the right, because everyone's going to want to go to the left now to move across. So you wouldn't go, even though the gap is on the left, you got to think, okay, I've got to get through before I get to that corner. So it's picking your moment to think, right, that whole group is going to want to swing to the left, or I'm going up the right, but we've got a corner in 300 meters that's 90 degrees to the right. So it's, yeah, as you say, pick your moments. Yeah. Inga Sesaline in the center there for the national champion of Lithuania. She was in the breakaway in Ronde van Vlaanderen at the weekend. So some different teams have got themselves into this split. So much more vigilant than we had on the earlier split in this one.
Yeah, and I think by the earlier split coming back, it's given those teams that missed that move just almost a kick to say, you know, come on, let's not be complacent. You know, the moves can go at any time, especially with these exposed sections of roads. I'm sure the DSs would have said, you know, right, let's get together now, stay at the front, let's make sure we don't miss it next time. And like you say, a lot of different teams are present now in this move, which could mean that it is a move that stays away, especially if no team have missed it, if they've all got a rider in this move that the teams are happy with. You can see the riders now getting the bottles. I think they all missed them.
It's hard, isn't it, to try and grab a bottle. And we saw Julie de Wilde on for Plantapura there, just trying to. She was the first one to try and grab a bottle and didn't quite get it. Alice Barnes the same. But it's it's trying to feed as a soigneur on the flat like this, where everyone's really motoring. It's like trying to grab a brick, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, especially like you say, when the speeds are high as well. It has to almost be perfect to be able to get the bottle. So it might mean that some riders have got to go back to the car, because obviously nutrition is really important, and when it's so cold as well, it's almost even more so. You almost forget to eat and drink enough. You know, the last thing you want is a cold bottle of energy drink. Sometimes if it's really cold, the Swannies might put like a warm drink in your bottle just to try and warm your core body temperature from the inside out. But really important for these riders to keep eating and drinking throughout, so they've got the energy come the back end of the race. But Julie de Wilde, who we just mentioned from the Plantapura team, she's actually the youngest rider in this race today. She's only 18 years old. So for her, she's been really impressive to even be at the front of the peloton. I remember in my first couple of years of racing, it was almost just trying to hang on to the back and finish a race. But so to be at the front of over 100 riders is it's really impressive, and yeah, great for this young Belgian rider.
Yeah, took a silver in the World Junior Road Race Championships in Harrogate a couple of years ago, and also came through one stage in the Watersley Ladies Challenge as well, which is another junior race, a sort of Nations Cup race. We normally in non-COVID times we have things like the Junior Healthy Aging Tour and Junior Omloop van Borsele as well. So good to see Julie up here. There she is on the right of your picture there, the white helmet, white bike, long jacket. But it looks like this split's coming back together. So this group, they didn't quite press on with that one. Maybe a little bit too large that time, Danny, the group.
Yeah, and that can happen sometimes when there's so many riders in the group. There's so many riders that can just sit on and not work, and then the riders who are motivated or, you know, come to a point where they say, you know, we're not just going to chase all day. When there's such a big group, there's just not that collaboration in a group of that size. So it has come back together now. I'm sure it will split again, especially before the circuits, Marty. Generally the bigger teams won't want to bring, you know, over 100 riders into that circuit. It becomes a lot more hectic, and generally the bigger teams will want a harder race. That would normally play into their hands. They're more used to harder racing coming to a final, and you know, if it's an easier race, it gives some of the smaller teams a real chance if they've got some pure sprinters to be able to get a result. And generally when the race is harder, riders with more experience or the bigger teams have got that higher fatigue resistance, which I know, again, I've spoken about before, where the riders are more used to sprinting after a race of over 100 kilometers, and they've been trained to do that. As a coach, for me now, it's really important that, you know, riders learn to sprint after training all day and after having tired legs. It's all very well being able to produce a really high max power when you're fresh, but it's also really important to be able to do so when your legs are tired. So I think the bigger teams will be motivated and will try and make this as hard as possible. For the smaller teams, they will probably want it to be more of this sort of race where the riders are almost just rolling along and give them the opportunity for a big max sprint at the finish.
And then you get Annemiek van Vleuten 300 plus meters sprint into Dwarsdorf-Vlaanderen, and if you didn't see that, go back and watch it. And if you want to know what that's like, map out 300 meters, and then I defy you not, as a mortal, to be in a wheezy mess at the side of the road before you hit the line.
Absolutely, that was such an impressive sprint, and it just shows, you know, the depth of Annemiek van Vleuten's, you know, strength. She's been training at altitude, she's been training with the men's team, and she really is such a classy bike rider.
Another classy bike rider here, Audrey Cordon-Ragot, with Amelie Deirdrickson on the wheel there. You can just see the rainbow bands. Audrey, audacious move in Flanders.
It was. She was away for upwards of 30 kilometres in the last half of that race, and she's another fantastic domestic. I've ridden with Audrey for a few years in the Wiggle team, and she's had a really consistent year so far, you know, with even top 20, top 30 results, and generally she will be working for the team. So I do really hope for Audrey she gets that opportunity for herself this year. As much as she does, I know, enjoy working for the team, she does like that opportunity to pick up a result. I remember obviously last year when she did win the French Nationals, how proud and passionate she was about you know, that tricolour jersey that she's got. She is definitely a proud French woman. She lives in the Bretagne region. She's won the Tour of Bretagne actually twice, in 2013 and 2019. It's a really special race for her, as is Plouay, which is also a home race for Audrey. But she's really happy within the Trek Segafredo setup. I think, you know, she's got her friends in there with Elisa Longo Borghini, and I think the professionalism of the setup means that she can really concentrate on her own performance, and that's something else that's, you know, really important within the female peloton. These teams now are becoming super professional. That means the riders can, you know, focus on their own performance. They don't have to worry about how they're going to get to a race, or, you know, their recovery after a race, having to bring their own nutrition, having to bring compression tights, for example. They're going to get a massage, and again, you know, these team setups now are, you know, equal to the men, and it's just great to see.
She's done a lot of work as well. That Tour de Bretagne that you mentioned, it's a really important race. It's a great race, and one of those races that has been around for a long time. And I remember I think with the team that organised it, you know, they felt that they needed to retire because they were, you know, they'd been running it for a long time. They'd retired from work, and Audrey did an awful lot of work in campaigning to bring that race back. And it's great. She really does push cycling in her region as well. And it's yeah, the Tour de Bretagne, hopefully, as we move through these times next year and other years, will be another race that we will be able to bring, hopefully. I hope you're enjoying Scheldeprijs today, the first edition of this race, Flanders Classics, as was their goal. Barbara Goriski here, just coming back to the Movistar team car for a bottle. But Flanders Classics wanted to add a women's race to every one of the men's races that they have on their organisation. So great to see the first edition of this race. Schoten to Schoten, 136.2 kilometres today. We hit the line after 86 kilometres. Then we have 3 laps of a 16.7 kilometre finishing circuit. So as it's the first edition of this race, we don't have a last year's form to sort of point to riders, but we look at races such as the Oxyclean Classic, which Grace Brown, we said, popped up and took that one on her own, but up there on that occasion. Emma Norsgaard, Jolien Dura was there as well, Lotte Kopecky, Elisa Balsama, Kirsten Veal, Chloe Hosking, Alice Barnes, Amy Peterson, Julie Leff was your top 10. But then we can look as well at the Ronde van Mouscron on Monday, which was won by Chiara Consoni ahead of Jelena Eresh. Maria Martins was up there for Dropsico, Lucy Junier for Arkea, Anna Travisi, Minky Baka, Sarah Martin, Maeli Grush, Eugenie Divan, Ariana Plushkia were the riders that were up there on that one. So we're looking, so some of our smaller teams potentially we can look at that would fancy their chances in this one today, without the likes of LABTC, Ljubljana, and without teams such as SD Works in this one. We've got 75 kilometers to go, and you just saw Barbara Goriski there, just having a bit of a radio check. Sometimes even the best batteries go on a cold rainy day as well, don't they, for the riders?
Yeah, definitely, and you could just see there as well, Barbara Grishki back to the car, had a problem with her radio. Yeah, really important for the riders to stay warm in these conditions. Unfortunately, just lost pictures now, but you can just see how exposed some of these roads are. It's important for the riders to be able to work in echelon formation, and again, it normally favours the Dutch, doesn't it, Marty? They've grown up in conditions like this, and they generally have races throughout the weeks. I know I came over to Belgium and Holland racing myself when I was younger, and took part in midweek races, and normally starts in a small town and comes out onto farm roads where the roads are totally exposed to the wind, and it's almost a do or die. You have to get yourself into the echelon to make it to the end of the race. So yeah, a race like today, especially now it goes out into the more exposed sections. We have seen echelons already today.
Yeah, I remember going over to the Netherlands as a youngster as well. I think I was, I couldn't have been more than like 14, 15, and it was like, oh, okay, then this is how quick racing is really in reality. But we were talking a little bit earlier as we see the finish line here of the Scheldeprijs, but we were talking about Julie de Wilde, and we mentioned the sort of Watersley Challenge, and I remember sitting watching last year. Zoe Backstead won that last year, and you look at that race, and that's a really interesting, it does go out, and they do close the roads around the sort of the bike park that they've got there, and it does show just why when riders come through in their sort of a lot of Belgian and Dutch riders, they come through at 18 and already from a racecraft perspective, they're a lot more. I don't know if mature is the right word in the racecraft. Looking at races like that, and then the Junior Healthy Aging Tour, which unfortunately they weren't able to have this year because of COVID. But we then look back, through a rider's career, and we okay, they've won the Junior Healthy Aging Tour as a junior, and they use the same routes, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and I've myself actually podiumed in the Healthy Aging Tour. But like you say, it's such a shock. It really is a shock to the system, especially for myself being British. And generally the races that we did as youths and juniors were on closed roads, circuit roads, sorry, car racing circuits that aren't generally that exposed. So you never really, they're big, wide roads. You don't really have to brake for any corners. And then you go to Belgium and Holland, and you have these almost crit style races around the town. There could be 50 laps where you really have to learn how to position yourself and fight for positions where the road goes from narrow to wide or wide to narrow, more importantly, and to be able to move yourself up in a bunch sprint scenario. You can't just go round on this big wide roads. And it was definitely the Belgian and Dutch riders that, yeah, like you say, were kind of more mature in that race craft. And it's really important for races like the Healthy Aging Tour for other nations to be able to come in and learn how to race ultimately, because you can definitely see the difference in that first couple of years of racing. That the riders that are more confident and can ride in a peloton and move themselves up generally are the riders that get in the results.
Our peloton all together don't forget, later on today, of course, you can join Brian Smith and Carlton Kirby for the Tour of the Basque Country, stage 3. A little bit of a chat going on at the front here. And then you also, the men's Scheldeprijs later on with Matt Stevens and Adam Blythe. There's another thing as well. We're seeing as a lot of our smaller teams up towards the front, and we're chatting a lot about our young riders in here. But as you come through as a pro, I remember Stephen Roach saying once that we were chatting around when we were commentating, working on a race once, and he mentioned as well, as young riders coming through, and you might agree as a pro, it's learning how not to waste energy in races, in places such as Belgium, not heavily braking into things, and learning how to sort of move through the peloton without having to sort of jam your brakes on and then make an effort to get back on, because every sort of those little sprints, those little efforts that you make, it could be, you make 10 micro efforts that someone like Elisa Brennauer or Lorena Wiebes or someone like that doesn't make, and that a lot of the time as well, learning how to conserve your energy and keep that power back, and keep that sort of full power pack ready for the finish. Those are the differences, aren't they, as you grow and mature as a rider and develop into a race winner.
Yeah, huge differences, and I was actually really terrible at that myself. I used to have my face in the wind way too much, and it was only in the last year or so of my cycling career that I learned that it actually it didn't matter what average power you had at the end of the race. Actually, it was better if you had the lowest average power. And I remember when I was riding for Wiggle, and I rode a race and I had a really high average max power, and average power for the race, and I compared it to Kirsten Wild, who had won the race, and my average power was so much more than hers. And I think I had a pretty free roll as well. Obviously you can't compare a roll of a domestique to a leader, when the leaders essentially, that is their job to not ride in the wind. But I think I had a pretty free roll myself in this specific race, and it was unbelievable, the difference. And I thought, of course she can sprint better come the end of a race if she's only average this amount of power compared to me, who's obviously had a face in the wind, sprinting down the side of the peloton to try and get to the front rather than trying to weave my way through the peloton on the wheels. It's really important, especially when we get to the top end of this bike racing and you're looking for marginal gains. Generally these girls, there's not much in it between their strengths. So if you can just save little bits of power here and there by using the wheels and being savvy with your racecraft, then it really does make the difference come the end of a race, and especially in a stage race. A race like the Giro Rosa, for example, is 10 days long. So the more you can save in the tank and the power bank, which I like that analogy that you use, Marty, come the end of the race, come day 7, 8 and 9, 10 even, the more likely it is that you've got more energy in the bank to get yourself a result, or be able to follow moves and attacks of riders that potentially haven't had to use their energy in the first half of the race. So yeah, it's a really key for these riders to learn and develop, and not just think about their power and improving physiologically, but also technically and tactically, so they can race smart is how I like to call it.
Yeah, race smart, definitely. I like that one. We will hit the finish line for the first time. So the first passage of the finish line is with 50.2 kilometers to go. If you are just joining us, we've had split after split in this race. We had a big split early on with over 100 kilometers to go, and it all came back together. We had a second split with 85 to go, and that all came back together. If you are just joining, inside 70k to go. We are missing the LA BTC Ljubljana team. They had a positive COVID test, so you do have your teams: Canyon SRAM, Movistar, Bike Exchange, DSM, Trek Segafredo, Bingo, Casino, Chevron. We've got Planta Pura. We've got Dolcini Van Eyck. Watch out for Katrin Schweinberger, who's number 86, good sprinter from them. Lotte Sudal, Multum Accountants, Andy Schleck racing are here. AR Monex with the likes of Arlena Sierra and Jay Tiolis. They've got Arkea with the red jersey. Roma Italia are here. B Pink, Vizcaya Durango, Sarah Tizzit, WNT, Tidou, big crash. A little bit further down the group is that Julie De Wilde that's on the deck here. Sana Kant, just the teammate there, just grabbing the bike. Got some DSM riders. Oh, it's Annick van Alphen. Gets back on the bike. And Annick van Alphen, this Wilma Olausson, the Swedish rider for Team DSM. So Annick van Alphen. That's for Planta Pura. Had a good winter. But Wilma, here another young Swedish rider, the next generation of Swedish riders coming through. Such a heritage in Swedish cycling. And just have a look at the little tumble here. They're all up and on their way. But for someone like Wilma, she's following in the wheel tracks of you know, the likes of Susan Youngskog and Emma Johansson and these sort of riders. Monica Holler was another great Swedish professional as well. They it's another country, and we hopefully next year we're going to get this tour of the north as well that we're waiting for.
Yeah, they've really progressed as a nation actually, and I think it is down to riders like Emma Johansson. I know Emma's got a real passion for developing the young Swedish riders, the girls, through the national programme. It's really good to see, and you can see the talent coming through in riders like Wilma. You saw there, unfortunately, a negative side of riding really well together as a team is that when you crash, generally you all crash together, and that's what we've seen there. And it was Susan Anderson really motivating the girls to try and get back on as soon as possible. And it's the same Bike Exchange girl that we've seen most of this race at the front, Tanelle Campbell. Again, she's obviously, you'd probably say, Marty, actually, she's not going to be their pick today. The amount of work she's doing on the front, like we were talking about earlier with the power bank, you know, she's definitely not going to have much power come the end of this race with all the work that she's been doing so far for the team.
I still Katie Archibald's beat, and I give Katie Archibald the run on this one as Annick van Alphen and Sana Kant try and get back on here. And I know Jeremy Paz likes, but it's like your energy is like a can of beans, big can of jelly beans. And you every effort that you make like this, you're grabbing a handful of jelly beans until you kind of get to the end and you're elbow deep in the jelly bean jar, and there's one jelly bean at the bottom and you just can't get it, and that's when you know that your energy is gone. Yeah, I remember it was London 60, I think, that Katie Archibald gave me the bean jar philosophy on that one.
If anyone else has got any other philosophies like the old bean jar, send them through via our social media channels. I know it's always interesting to hear different analogies of how to race. 65k to go. AR Monex are this black jersey with the white stripes on it. So this was what was Astana. This was the Astana women's team that is now the AR Monex team. I think it's Maria Milieva that's off the front here. It's hard to pick everyone out today under the big jackets and everything, but we'll get a confirmation of that one. Bike Exchange, what a team that they've got in this one. So Erska Gigot, Sarah Roy, Monique Tenilo, Adiana Fidanza, Yannicka Ensing, and Tanya Ocampo. This is Lisbeth Salazar, my apology, that's off the front here for AR Monex. Just a little stealthy attack, you could call this one, isn't it? It's kind of almost trying to creep off the front. It's kind of like how Lonika Unicum won the final stage of Healthy Aging Tour, just kind of like the sort of stealth mode off the front, just kind of pedalled away. Yeah, it's either stealth mode or crazy to ride off the front, you know, this close to the peloton behind. But again, it's really important for riders to give it a go, and I think that's yeah, it's really good to see, you know, riders having the confidence to try and get off the front there. But it was a bit of a stealth move attack. Didn't seem to have much real drive and motivation to keep it going. But again, we'll see how long it lasts. As the two Plantapura riders just tap each other on the back to say, well done, we're back in contention for this race. It's great to see the cyclocross riders really getting stuck into these road races now.
Annick van Alphen there, the rider there with the long blonde ponytail that you can see sticking out under her helmet. If you don't follow cyclocross, is one of the first riders that we saw starting to bunny hop the planks. A real talented young rider, and those two, it's quite interesting watching them together, because it was when Annick first really came through, and it was a race and a battle with Sana Kant that we really first saw her. So it's quite interesting. It was a really good battle. Sana won on that occasion, but it's good to see them in here and working together. And Sana is Sana's, she's medalled as well. We do always say as a cross rider, and she is very much a pure cross rider, but she does jump on the road. She's medalled in national. Oh, big crash at the front. You saw a big splash there. Someone went into looked like a deep hole on the side there on the cobblestone section, unfortunately, and that's had that ricochet effect across the front of the peloton there. It just looked like it started on the right hand side there.
Big crash there as riders are trying to get through the bush on each side. Unfortunately, when there's cobbles like this, you can just see the difference in the road furniture, the different almost parts of the road, the cobbles to the smooth sections on the side. And unfortunately, when the riders are riding so close together, if one comes down, generally a lot more are going to be down. Hopefully all these riders are okay. It's never nice to see crashes in the peloton. Bikes are a bit tangled, but it does look like most, if all, are on their feet, and that's what we like to see.
Shirin van Anrooy in the centre there. We've got one rider holding her elbow. This is Inga Cesseline, but that's just having a look. Yeah, apologies to Letizia, sorry. Looking for a bike here, and she would have been a good option for Trek Segafredo come the sprint.
She would indeed, especially as Chloe Hoskin is not riding today after a positive COVID result. I had her down as their leader, but then obviously as that changed, it was Letitia Paternoster who would have been their sprinter for today. This is an interesting one, Marty. What is your thoughts on, when there's a crash and then, there's a split? You could see it was a puddle. You could see the water there. Unfortunately, the puddle was covering the ditch in the road, so unfortunately that is what caused that crash there. But Marty, the pressure at the front of that peloton, or that split there, looked to be quite high, but that's obviously come as a result of the crash. And it's a really hard one to know, the etiquette of bike riding, as to when there is a crash or not, whether you should just wait and let the group reform, or whether you should kind of try and obviously profit off that misfortune. It's always a hard one to call. It was very close
to the front as well, wasn't it? It's a difficult one, that one. Was the pressure already on, and was the crash a result of that? Or the crash was very, very close to the front. It was I think it was potentially Emily Moberg. It was one of the Drops Lacole riders that seemed like she went down first. It doesn't look now like the pressure's gone off the front now, Danny.
Yeah, I think for me it would always be nice for it to come back together. I know it's a part and parcel of bike racing. I think a lot of people will say the same. You've got to crack on. It's just part of the sport, especially if everyone is okay. But yeah, it's never nice to see someone almost profit off someone else's misfortune if there is a split at a crucial time.
Just saying, I think, just catching a glimpse on the outside from Team Coupe High-Tech Product, Emma Bogard in the white jersey and the blue sleeves, just sitting second in line here. You can just see her there. I think it's she's the younger sister of Micah Bogard. So good to, she's moved across to Team Coupe. They've signed her team, slightly smaller team, hadn't had any races so far this season, so moving across to getting a pro contract with Team Coupe. Let's have a look around the front, and we've got Lisa Brennauer, always vigilant at the front, is Lisa Brunauer. They've got plenty of DSM jerseys behind her. And so the Ceratizit WNT team today, another strong team in this one to help work for Lisa Brunauer today. Canyon Schramm up towards the front, so we'll have a look, see if the cameras look back and see if the groups have managed to get themselves back in here and get themselves back together. Alice Barnes, still looks like the peloton growing in numbers again here, Danny, as they go around that road furniture.
Yeah, it does look like this. The groups are coming back together, which is good to see following the crash. I think we're going to just see more pressure now at the front of the group. This still a really big peloton. Almost probably every rider that we started with today is still here with 60 kilometers to go. So we are in the final stages of the race now, as the Movistar rider, it looks like Barbara Gruskry, just moves across. She almost, you know, put her arm out as if to say, I'm coming across, so just give me the space. Another really experienced rider. Lisa Brunauer there in the black with the yellow overshoes. Again, we've talked about Lisa being on absolute fine form. Second in Flanders last weekend. Ouch.
Yeah, that's not a good sign, is it? That's Silvia Pasico. I was just trying to catch a glimpse of the number there. Silvia Pasico. She's going to have to change that one. Looked like she went down in the crash there. Hopefully, someone will give her a nod that's a bit wobbly.
I hope she'll be able to feel that. Yeah.
You know, when we were talking about how your bike feels earlier, weren't you? You know when something like that's happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 60 kilometers to go here in Scheldeprijs, the first edition of this race, who is going to put themselves up there as the first ever winner of this one. And this is the other issue as well, isn't it, that behind that crash, behind those groups, it does mean that the team cars get delayed before they get back up to the riders. And Silvia, although that wheel is seriously out of shape, she just sat on the back of the peloton and just waiting until the car eventually gets to her, because we talk earlier on about learning your racecraft and things that come with experience. As we hit this next cobblestone section, the Broekstraat here, 750 meters, because we talk about that a lot. We see riders that will just stop at the side of the road, and then all of a sudden you're a minute and a half, 2 minutes off the pack, because your team car's been stuck behind all the groups and that have just come down in that crash.
Yeah, and also to stay calm, Martin. Yeah, know exactly what's best to do. So you can see here, she's just trying to stay attached to this peloton for as long as she can whilst her car is coming up to the front. Like you say, after that crash, the car's probably got distanced, and you know, it's important for the rider who's having the problem to stay within the cars to be able to get back into the group. You know, it's going to be impossible if they're out of the back of the cars. You know, it's really hard to get back in. So yeah, stay calm, try and stay at the back of the group, but obviously if it's safe to do so, as long as you can, and wait for your team car to come up to help. But this is the cobbled section that we're going to see 3 times in this race. It's within the lap, the small lap that we're coming into now. 750 meters, and another dynamic to the race.
Fairly open on one side for the trees, but shrouded on the other side with the forest and the houses. Shirin van Anrooyen, you're right there, on the front of the peloton. Silvia Pasico just on the back here, still waiting for the team car to get up to her. His back wheel's getting wobblier and wobblier as she goes on, but you can again, for that team, they've got such a strong team in this one. Elisa Balsamo, Chiara Consoni, both riders that could win this in a bunch kick. They've got Vittoria Guazzini, Guazzini for me has been one of the riders of the classics so far as well. She really has, for Valcar Travel and Service, really has, oh, big crash on the side. The rider just sliding out there on the cobblestones. So another crash there, just the slick cobblestones on the top. So rider gone down there, and it's Alice Barnes that's gone down for Canyon Schramm. She's quickly up. The Ceratisit rider on the right there. So the pressure on here, Danny, in this one.
Yeah, it's really nervous, isn't it, in the bunch today, Marty? You know, and we can see, you know, it's been wet, it's cold, there's cobblestones. That must have happened towards the front of the bunch, I would guess, with a rider like Alice Barnes coming down and, you know, teammates helping each other now, try and get the chain back on. Unfortunately, it's part of this a race like today. There's always crashes that are going to happen, and that's why positioning again is so vital, because generally you see crashes happening as a ricochet towards the back of the peloton. But Alice looks like she's looking down at her knee there, waiting for a spare bike. Hopefully she'll get back in.
Hopefully. Saw the Andy Schleck rider there, just giving Georgia Danford the her front wheel. So Lisa Brennauer just talking into the radio here. So that crash has had quite an effect over the front of the peloton. So a few crashes. Alice Barnes now is up and on her way here, just having a look back at the team car. British champion, that's a shame. She's been on looking good so far today. Hopefully she can recover and get herself back in there. But it is the cobblestones, just the way you can see here, these are what you would call proper cobblestones as well, because you've got that ridge, haven't you, in the centre, and it looked like they just sort of hit the ridge and slid off the ridge of the cobblestones. Yeah,
that was a fast crash as well, Marty. It did happen at the front of the peloton. It just takes one rider to slide out, but unfortunately for Alice, she doesn't look like she's you know, super keen to try and get herself back. Hopefully she will, but the cars are passing her quite quickly now, and she's not just trying to jump on the back, which is what we generally see after a crash if a rider is okay, to try and get back into the peloton. So it looks like she's just waiting for her team car to communicate with them as to you know, how she feels, or if there's a problem with the spare bike, for example. She is one of the favourites today for sure. She was second in Healthy Aging Tour, the stage 1 of Healthy Aging Tour, which Jolene won from SD Works, so she is on good form. So it's a real shame for the British national champion.
It is indeed. B Pink on the front. It looks like Sylvia Zanardi that we saw back at the team car a little bit earlier on. Shirin Van Anrooy riding third wheel there for Trek Segafredo. So Letizia Paternoster we saw had an issue earlier on. We didn't see if Letizia got back on. We'll have a look for Trek Segafredo, the young rider there for Trek. Another exciting rider. She's a former World Junior Cyclocross champion. She was a medalist at the World Championships as well in Harrogate in the time trial, European Junior time trial champion. Now just stepping up into this Trek Segafredo team, learning from some really experienced riders in this one. Having a look around the group just to sort of get an idea of who's in here. 56 kilometers to go, so we're running in on this finishing circuit in towards the first passage of the line, which comes with 50.2 kilometers to go. Camera just panning around on the front of the peloton here.
Audrey just giving direction to teammates there, I think, to try and move up. Audrey's such a great, you know, leader as well. She's a really good one to have in the team to learn from. And again, it's normally the team captain on the road, so generally you'll have a team captain. Not another one for Emma. No, I don't think it is. She hasn't got that red bike. Oh, it is again. Another bike change for Emma Jorgensen. Wow.
So Emma Norsgaard, so off the back again for another issue today. So she's been so consistent, hasn't she, this season? And we just see Leia Lynn Teutenberg just coming up towards her, the Ceratisit WNT rider, and it looks like Emma, she's got some blood on the knee, potentially went down in that crash, has damaged that bike that she wanted to get back onto. So consistent, hasn't managed to get the hands in the air yet, but just the consistency of her. There's Letizia Paternoster. She's trying to get back into the... This having Emma in here as well, this will be a good thing for Letizia.
Yeah, definitely. And normally when you crash or find yourself out the back, just have a quick look around, see who's in, you know, in that group with you trying to get back in. And like you say, for Leticia to have Emma in that group, that'll be a big sigh of relief, because you know generally she will be getting back on. You can see now the peloton are just ahead, so pretty stress-free for these riders who found themselves caught up or in that crash. They are back into that peloton. But like you say, yeah, for Emma, she's yet to pick up that big win, and she actually in an interview after the Oxyclean Classic de Panna, where she was second, she said she was asked if it was her breakthrough year, and she said it's not my breakthrough year until I get my arms in the air, so hopefully it won't be long. Again, she's got a star next to her name on my notes as one of the clear favourites for today.
Another issue for Chiara Consoni here. So Chiara, we've seen her chase back, and in each of these chases, Danny, when you're a sprinter like Chiara, it does just take that edge out of the sprint, doesn't she? You've got one teammate that's gone back with her, but it's each one of these efforts that you have to make to get back in. But does it help coming from, you know, when you're a multidiscipline rider like Chiara, when you come from that track background, to be able to sort of repeatedly make those efforts and know that you still have got that, you know, that big sprint at the end?
Yeah, I think so, and it's also important, you know, for the road riders to have to make repeated efforts within training as well, because even if you don't have a problem, generally races are, you know, on-off nature of racing, where, you know, as we've seen today, there's parts where it splits. You have to work hard for short durations, and then the pressure comes off and you're recovering and taking on nutrition to ultimately have to go again. And it's like we were saying, we have to be able to deal with that on-off nature and repeated efforts of the sport. So for Consoni there, yeah, I think it also comes with experience, not to get really stressed out if you've got a problem, and get back as efficiently as possible, use the cars to get back in. And just keep your head on. And it looks like Alice Barnes is getting back in, so that's good to see. Alice Barnes coming back into contention for this race, although arms are in the air.
Just what's worth pointing out here is how Alice, just how cool and how calm she is in getting back in here. She really is, and she's got that sort of personality. She's such a laid back you know, type person, although obviously cycling means so much to her. I think she's got a really good balance between, you know, her personal life and cycling. She takes it so seriously, but again, you know, you could see how relaxed she was after that crash. Kind of, you know, I even said, oh, I don't know if she's going to get back in, but actually she was obviously just super chilled. You know, she's got maybe wanted a different bike or a different sort of setup or a bottle even. I think I noticed that she didn't have a bottle in her bottle cage when she got that spare bike. Maybe she was waiting for that, but she's got back into this group, and again, I'm sure she'll be sprinting for that victory in the latter half of in this race when we see the final. Neve Bradbury, a little nod of the head there by the Canyon SRAM rider, second wheel. She knows her the team leader's trying to get back on here, and just defending the moves at the front.
Yeah, good to see from the Zwift Academy winner. What an opportunity! And again, it's a real jump into the deep end with the Zwift Academy winners. And generally, what you see is they're so strong and their numbers are fantastic, but actually they don't have that experience of riding in a peloton. And we've seen it with you know, riders in the past like Leah Thomas, and they have to really learn how to race. But it's great to see Neve Thomas at the front of this peloton, especially in such a stressful, you know, hectic race like this one today, where it's harder to stay near the front.
Heading in towards the line for the first time. Here come bike exchange. So Tanya Campbell and Monique Teniglo back to the front here for Bike Exchange. Alice Barnes on the back here. Looks like Chiara Consoni just ahead there that's got back in here for Valcar. So the issues. And I think that's what's great today in terms of being able to bring over 100 kilometers of today's race, because sometimes we might just, you know, we might only get the last hour of a race, but the drama and everything that's unfolded. We've had two big splits. We've had a couple of crashes. We've had punctures. We've had, you know, issues for different riders that, you know, come the finish, it puts a win or a podium or something, or even a top 10 for someone that's had 3 bike changes, a puncture, and got delayed or come down in a crash. It paints the full picture, doesn't it, when we get to be able to show a race almost in its entirety like we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those domestiques that have, you know, played such a critical role in the team's victory, for viewers to be able to see that work that they've put in and not just see, you know, a result of 102nd, for example, that actually they've been working so hard all day for their teammates. So yeah, like you say, great to paint the whole picture, great to be able to see the race really unfold and how the teams come together to essentially take that overall victory.
We're heading in towards the line. This is the first passage of the finish, and you're getting to see the run in towards the finish. It's quite a fast run in towards the line as well. This one, isn't it? From a lead out perspective in 3 laps time.
Yeah, it is, and it looks relatively sheltered as well. So this gives the riders a real chance to be able to feel the nature of this finish, so they can decide how they want to play it out come the last lap, where they want to launch their sprint, who's going to take which rider to which point in the road, you know, where they're going to take up the lead out. So again, it's a good opportunity for the teams to communicate, still with 51 kilometers to go. You've got 3 laps to go there in this circuit, as to where best they think they'll have the best opportunity to win.
And we saw DSM coming up towards the front. Are these the points you get to as well as a sprinter and as a protected rider, and even as maybe the road captain in the lead out, and think, okay, where's the wind coming from? What gear am I going to want to use in this sprint? Does it help you when you come into a line and you're getting to see it on multiple occasions like this?
Yeah, it definitely helps, but I guess it helps everyone, doesn't it? So it puts everyone on a level playing field. And again, it just, I guess, for teams that haven't been able to do recce's or have got the, I guess, potential team members that can take up that role, whether it's looking at Google Maps, it just gives those potential smaller teams that haven't got that time and real, you know, employees, I guess, to do those sort of things, and the time to take that into consideration, that it puts them on that level playing field, that they've got the opportunity to really see that finish line. I know Google Maps is used a lot, and you know, sometimes it's a case of riders having to take on that role themselves to do their homework about races and the finishes of races, especially if you are that sprinter, as to what the finish line looks like. Pick out key points in the road that they're going to pass with, you know, 1 kilometre, 500 metres, 200 metres to go, so that they're not looking out for, you know, a specific sign that says, you know, 200 to go, and then they can really use that to their advantage. So preparation is key, not only for training, for nutrition, but also to look at finish lines and critical points in the race. But for today, maybe teams wouldn't have done that because they know that they've got, you know, 3 opportunities to see the finish line, or 2 before they're sprinting for the victory come the finish.
Because it can be that moment where you go through that section, you think, okay, there's a gap between those 2 big buildings, the wind's coming from here, and there's a lot of chat going on at the front here amongst team Bike Exchange.
Yeah, there is, Martin. It might be a case of talking about the finish, or maybe talking about a different opportunity to try and launch an attack or go to the front as a unit.
Elizabeth Salazar back on the front. Alice Barnes just hanging out down the back. Just again, when you come down in a big crash like that and rode herself back on, you see her in that British Champions white jersey with those red, white and blue bands. sometimes it's that shock, isn't it, that if you are okay to continue, you're just taking your time just to sort of settle again, just settle everything back down.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's what Alice is doing. She's just taking stock of herself and, you know, letting her body recover a little bit from the crash, stay out of trouble. She knows now that if there's not an exposed section on this course, generally it's not too dangerous, and for a ride like Alice, she can get herself to the front quickly if she desires and when she desires. So it's just an opportunity for her to, yeah, like you say, just take the time after the crash, spin her legs out a bit, take on some food and fuel, communicate with the team as to how she's feeling, and get herself back to the front when she feels the time is right.
DSM all on the front here for Lorena Wiebes, and we've got Ilaria Sanguinetti is the rider here from Valcar Travel and Service. Has got a rear wheel puncture. Not have it. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way as a team, does it? In terms of tyres, some days that you just get puncture after puncture after puncture. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is, and it does normally come in waves, like you say, Marty. You generally have sort of a day of bad luck, as it were, either for one specific rider or for the team itself, and it's about, you know, not panicking and staying calm. You know, I think I've had a few races where I've had my best results and I seem to have had problem after problem. Maybe it's that adrenaline that gets you through it, but yeah, it's part and parcel of bike racing. You know, when you're riding bikes with, you know, such technical parts to them. Again, I'm really not a good mechanic, so it really excuse my technical language here, but especially with, you know, electric gears and having to charge your bikes, we see problems with you know, riders getting stuck in a gear and things like that. It's just part and parcel of the race in itself. That's why we have such fantastic mechanics to fix our bikes for us if we do have a problem. But it's Drops Nicole now who are on the attack.
They are indeed. It's the British registered team getting on the attack here. So we start inside 50 kilometers to go here in Scheldeprijs, the first edition of this race. We're on our 3 finishing circuits now. So can anyone get clear over the closing 3 laps?
Great to see Drops pick up their first podium of the year in Moskron, with Maria Martins picking up 3rd position behind Consoni and Jelena Eric. Great for that team to get on the podium. Confidence breeds confidence, motivation for more victories.
Does. Talking of confidence, this is Danique Hangeveld that's going here for GT Crush. If you were with us for the Healthy Aging Tour, you might remember Hangeveld's just recognised the style there. We've only seen her once this year, but it looks like the track rider that almost managed to snatch the first stage of the Healthy Aging Tour on the Assen circuit, that is now attacking here for GT Crush. We'll get confirmation when we get an over. If I'm right, I'll be very happy with myself. But,
I think you are, Marty. I'm pretty sure that is the style that we saw, and what an incredible ride she had. Only 18 years of age. To pick up, she even picked up 8th place in that first stage of the Healthy Aging Tour. She was away off the front and she only got caught with a couple of 100 meters to go, and it was a really brave move, but just showed the strength of the young Dutch rider. Again, only 18 years of age, and she's had some really good results already. She was 28th in GP Ottingen, and this is her style. She's a really strong time trial rider, and look at the gap she's got already.
Yeah, that's a proper move now by the GT Crush rider, Danique Hangeveld. And as we always say, as the young riders that come into these races, they're not phased at all by the riders, the big name riders. As we said, she's last year got some bronze medals at the European Championships as a junior in the elimination race. Former junior European champion in the elimination race, or the devil takes the hindmost, as we also call it in track cycling circles. But GT Crush, and this is great for the sponsors as well of these smaller teams that are on the attack and getting themselves up there in this one. And it is Danique Hangeveld, number 202. So GT Crush was this team. There we go. They put the graphic up for us now. And this is important for these teams as well, isn't it? When you're it's growing and developing your team as well. For sort of young riders like this, up against the Trek Segafredos and the Canyon Shrams and the Movistars, it does give you confidence as a team, doesn't it? That you're here and you're competitive.
Definitely, and also for the other teams as well. You know, if she can do it, I can do it. That sort of mentality, and you know, it's also an opportunity to really show yourselves to the bigger teams, and that kind of opportunity that you get to really showcase what you can do, and to have that confidence is fantastic. Something I definitely didn't have when I was riding. But Danique Hangeveld here, she's just into her groove. You know, she's really finding her rhythm now to ride at a threshold pace, time trial type mode that she can hold for a long time. Really nice pedaling style. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, Marty, and we saw it in the Healthy Aging Tour, and we're seeing it again here today from Danique.
And look at that, 30 seconds already, 44k to go. And this perhaps, Danny, is on a circuit such as this, perfect timing when on the finishing circuit, everyone's starting to look around at each other, try and decide what the tactics are. And 30 seconds is a decent gap already for the GT Crush rider.
Yeah, it's a fantastic gap, Martin. It's not as exposed, this circuit now, so we're not going to see those, you know, real echelon formations that will naturally close that gap to Danique. So this is a really, really good move, and it's a move that's got the biggest gap we've seen all day. So really, really impressive. And for Danique now, she can just settle into her own rhythm, take on the fuel for her teammates. They can just sit back and follow anything now. They don't have to take on any sort of responsibility, and cross their fingers that she can make it all the way.
So she got swept up literally on the run-in to the finish in Assen, on the Assen Motor Racing circuit, and that's another famous circuit in cycling circles. A lot of young riders grow up riding the Tour of Assen. Is another famous race, but this is a different thing. This is a different race altogether. Is the Scheldeprijs. This is the first of this classic. So someone today, one of these riders, that will become the first winner of this race. And this rider comes through from a track background. Has also clearly grown up. She's been the national junior Keirin champion in the past as well, and national champion in races such as the Omnium. But the peloton now, they look like they're happy to let this young rider go.
Yeah, I think there's enough time left to be able to get a chase together if need be. At this moment, we're still 43 kilometers to go, you know, around that hour mark of racing. They're just happy to let Danique almost dangle out there for the moment. But again, they can't become complacent. We know how strong this rider is. And the riders will know that. A rider like Alice Barnes, who was second in that stage where Danique was away, you know, will know how strong she is to be able to stay away, especially on a course like we saw in the Healthy Aging Tour, on that motor racing type circuit. You know, for a solo rider to stay away is really, really impressive. So they can't become too complacent, Marty, but for now they're happy to let her go.
This for someone like Danique, and in this season, because of the way the world is, you've got to take every opportunity, haven't you, to, as she hits the cobblestone section, shifts the hands onto the tops of the bars, and you can just see the way just allows it, she rattles across the cobbles here. You can just see now, as you were talking earlier on, just 18 years old, but showing the experience of growing up. This is her playground, the cobblestones, these sort of roads. You can see the technique, hands on the tops, just letting the bars just bounce up and down in the hands, and this just shows it's great. And this is where, you know, come the end of the season, where Trek Segafredo or Canyon SRAM or Movistar or DSM are thinking, okay, who are we going to sign for next year, and you as a sport director and as a team, you kind of make a mental note of a rider, and someone who like Danique, who's almost, as we said, almost held on and snatched the first stage on Assen, but then you come to here and we're saying it's a completely different race, a classic on the cobblestones. You think, actually, this is a young rider that we need to give an opportunity. This is a rider who already clearly is very, very good given her background, but this is a sort of rider that you look at Danique here and she has that sort of Ellen van Dijk kind of you have that sort of echoes of Ellen when you look at the way Danique rides.
Yeah, I really agree with you there, Marty, and it's great to see that she's taken that and she's taken it into her own hands, and she hasn't just, you know, even if she is super strong, she could have easily just sat back and thought, you know, how am I going to stay away with the likes of Trek Segafredo and Bike Exchange, you know, behind me? But she's really taken it on and she's showing how strong she is, and it's really, really important.
You can see this cobblestone section, just you've got to sort of, Magnus Baxter always says you have to find the smoothest line of the cobbles, because apparently there is one, even on the worst cobblestone sections apparently.
Yeah, I think there is, and generally it's towards the middle. As you can see Danique riding now in the middle of the cobblestones. It's normally a little bit raised and a little bit flatter, but she really is in her element here, and I'll say it now, I think she'll be snapped up by one of the bigger teams in the next couple of years as well. She's got that confidence, she's obviously super strong, and she's not afraid to really use races like this, and it's a great opportunity for her to showcase what she can do, and she's doing it.
She is. You just saw Nora Jenčeskova there. We just saw a little, just as she hit the cobblestone just on the left there, the rider wearing 155, and it's always interesting when you look around the group and you just see the different technique of riders. Some riders do prefer to sort of try and roll a bigger gear, don't they? Whereas a lot of riders prefer to sort of rev over the, kind of almost try and glide, rev over the top of the cobbles.
Yeah, and I was always one that wanted to ride in a bigger gear. For me, it felt like it was a smoother way of doing so, rather than kind of using a smaller gear. When you're revving, you're sort of bouncing and you're already being bounced around on the cobble. So for me, I used to put it in the biggest gear, try to let my hands relax on the top of the handlebars and almost try and glide over the cobbles as efficiently as possible. But yeah, it's interesting to see everyone's different techniques also in more of the cobbled races that we see, a Flanders type, and especially on the men's side with Roubaix. Hopefully we're going to see the first Roubaix for women in October. That was such a shame that it's been postponed, but let's hope that it happens. Some of the men tape their hands to save their hands from blisters from the cobbles, and they really are brutal, and what you see on telly is really nothing like what it feels like. And if you get the opportunity to ride on cobbles in Holland and Belgium, please do give it a go, because it's you know, it's a really insightful experience, and it gives you the opportunity to really feel what the riders go through when they've got multiple cobbled sections within a race.
And it's important when you get, you know, we're saying a little bit earlier on that the Scheldeprijs now is the final classic from Flanders Classics, that they've now got the full set in women's cycling as well, and not just that, but live TV on every single one of them.
Yeah, definitely, and it's just so important to get that coverage for women's cycling, like we're seeing now with the Eurosport GCN coming together to really showcase women's cycling. And you know, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's great to be a part of, you know. And also these races coming together, this is the first edition of the Scheldeprijs for women, and now it's we know with a few years ago with these big races being back-to-back with the men's, as Flèche Wallonne and Flanders, all the infrastructure's already in place for the men's race, so let's put a women's race on as well. And I think, you know, the growth will then, you know, just develop even further, and we'll see that snowball effect happen where the sponsors will be happy to put their names on the jersey, the money into the sport, the women as a result of that will be able to be full-time, and we'll just see it grow from strength to strength. Danique, front of this race now. Great move from the young Dutch rider. 50 seconds is the gap now. She's doing an absolutely amazing job out there. We saw her nearly hang on for that first stage of the Healthy Aging Tour earlier this year. She rode a couple of races. She didn't race in the World Tour circuit in 2020. She rode in 2019 as a young rider to take that Watersley Ladies Challenge Cup, where she was 7th overall. This is a really, really good move.
First edition, 39 kilometers to go. If you're just joining us today, welcome. We're heading in towards Schotten. We have 3 laps of a 16.7 kilometer finishing circuit for today's classic here. And it's Danique Hangeveld, our young rider here from GT Crush. Cold day for the riders, 4 to 6 degrees Celsius, strong winds that have really buffeted the riders. If you just haven't been with us since the start, what a race we had that early split. We were about 110 kilometers to go. We had the likes of Lisa Klein, Lisa Brennau, Tenya Campbell, Lorena Wiebes up in that leading group with Elisa Balsamo. They really split the race. All came back together. We had a second split with about 85 kilometers to go. That all came back together. We've had a couple of crashes as well, but we now have a solo rider. 50 seconds is the gap. Really has opened this gap up quickly, has Danique Hangeveld, just in full time trial mode here, as we said a little bit earlier. I think this young rider here is going to be snapped up by one of the big teams come the end of this season, and it can perhaps sometimes be a little bit bittersweet for a team like GT Crush. You find these young riders, you bring them through, and then you have to let them fly, you have to let them go, and they can go up to the World Tour teams potentially. And you do have to sort of see them do that sometimes. But Danique, impressive riding, so cool, so calm, isn't she? The way that she just time trialing off the front of this one, but plenty of big name sprinters in this one today. We did point out the likes of Alice Barnes, who has had a crash from Canyon SRAM for Movistar. Emma Norsgaard's had a few issues as well today. Sarah Martin, though, for Movistar has also got a handy sprint on her. Sarah Roy from Team Bike Exchange. Lisa Brennau was in that early move, was Lisa Brennau, and has been very much to the front. Great sprint in Ronde van Vlaanderen at the weekend. We got the likes of Chiara Consoni in there as well, Lorena Wiebes for Team DSM. Chiara Consoni's had quite a few chases to get back in today. Her teammate, though, Elisa Balsamo, made that first split and has been very, very quiet since, has Elisa Balsamo. So we haven't seen many issues for her. Some of your other riders you could watch out for perhaps today for Arkea. Gladys Verholst, if you were with us for Les Samines. She was 4th in Les Samines for Arkea. For Georgia Danford, for Andy Schleck, has got a handy sprint on her as well, does the New Zealand rider. We saw her teammate changing the front wheel for Georgia Danford a little bit earlier on. For Lotto Soudal, you've got Jessie van der Bolke for Lotto Soudal, as she's a good sprinter from Plantenpur. The likes of Laura Susamirch, and also young Julie de Vilder's got a handy kick on her come the finish. Michaela Drummond, the sort of rider from Be Pink. We've also got in the race today for Massey Tactic, Vita Heiner for NXG, the likes of Charlotte Cool. But still 54 seconds now, and you're pushing that gap out. You start to get that belief a little bit more, Danny, when you start to hit that sort of minute gap over the peloton.
Yeah, and especially if she does go over that minute, her team car will be able to come up behind her, and although they have radios, it will just give her that extra motivation. I'm sure there'll be a few beeps of the horn really to, really try and push her forward, and you can just see with the style that she's feeling good. She's been able to produce, you know, power through her legs. Her head's not dropping. She looks to be super focused as she's going around this right hand bend now. She's out of the saddle trying to get back up to speed after going around that corner. So this is a fantastic move, and she just has we just saw that pip over that 1 minute gap there for the young Dutch rider, and this is such a fantastic move. 2 kilometers to go now, I'm sorry, to the finish line, where she'll see 2 laps to go. And I think as well, on a finishing circuit type finish to a race, it almost makes the finish line come quicker. It's a way of really trying to, you know, move or split the race up into parts to try and get yourself through as quickly as possible. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's much pressure here in the peloton behind, but the teams are going to have to come to try and bring Danique back.
Yeah, they get some counter attacks now coming in. So the drops Lacole colours again just coming through to the front with Multum Accountants. Having a glance back, we are getting a bit of reaction now. So those Movistar jerseys, I think perhaps the teams we saw DSM were through towards the front with Lorena Wiebes not far away. Perhaps you think they're quite happy to let a single rider ride out there. You'd have that confidence, would you say, potentially, when you're the team working on the front and you've got a Lorena Wiebes in your midst, that you know you're quite happy to have one rider to bring back. A group of 3 or 4 perhaps maybe not so much.
Yeah, one rider is definitely should not be dangerous, especially at this stage of the race with 35 kilometers to go. Like you said, if there is that team that decide to bring it back, then a group of 4 should be able to work consistently to ride it, to bring a single rider back. Sorry, but with Danique, we know the strength of this rider, and we've seen it time and time again where we've predicted a solo rider will be brought back, and even a group behind working consistently together can't do it. We saw it in Trofeo Binda with Elisa Longo Borghini, who had a really strong group behind working together, and she won solo. So that's what's super exciting about bike racing. You know, this gap is going up. You know, it just pipped at 1:04 there that you can see on the screen, 1:05 even. It just gives a solo rider the opportunity to get into their own groove, whereas behind, generally it takes a lot of time to get the teams to collaborate and work together to bring a rider back like this.
Going through 34 kilometers to go, 2 laps to go this time. Danique Hangeveld, and you just go back to the front of the peloton. You got DSM on your left, and you got Valcar Travel and Service in those bright pink jerseys through the center for the likes of Elisa Balsamo. That team, we know what they can do. If you were with us for the Ceratizit challenge in Madrid last year, remember that lead out on the final stage of that one where they delivered Elisa Balsamo perfectly in that one. Lisa Brennauer in the center there, the white helmets and the bright yellow shoes over boots straight down the center. So plenty of teams now up towards the front of this one. And for Ceratizit WNT, Leolyn Teutenberg, the young rider, is in that team. Emily Moberg for Drops Lacole, not far from the front, as our team bike exchange keeping themselves up towards the front and out of trouble. 2 laps to go, and it's being led through by Valcar Travel and Service.
Alice Barnes there, just saw coming to the front for the Canyon SRAM team, so she was making her way to the front of the peloton. She was involved in that crash earlier today. She spent a bit of time at the back of the peloton just taking stock, but good to see the British rider coming back to the front with 2 laps to go now, 33 kilometers. Danique Hangeveld, 59 seconds. That gap is just maybe starting to come down, Marty, as the riders were just a bit more keen to get to the front. We saw teams coming together. We saw Julia Suk leading through for the Team DSM, Canyon SRAM riding together as well, and Valcar Travel and Silence in the middle of that group behind.
Danique alone, and we do touch on it quite a bit in terms of the young riders in this race. You've got the Shirin Van Anrooy, and you've got Danique, and you've got Julie de Vilde that are 18, and that is part of women's pro cycling, isn't it? That you turn pro a lot of the time at 18, and you're in here with Barbara Gwarowski, who's been around for a long time, and Lisa Brennauer, and these sort of riders, and that's what sometimes is there is physically as a youngster coming in at 18 and competing against someone that is a lot more physically mature than you are. It kind of puts the rides of Danique and other riders into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think the biggest change for these young riders is the distance. They'll be going from races around the 70-80 kilometre mark to, you know, today it's 136 kilometres, but there are races, you know, like we see last year's Flanders, for example, in 2019, it was 159 kilometres, which is, you know, it's such a long way, and it's such a big change for these young riders to have to, you know, develop their endurance when, you know, they are only 18 years of age. So it's a big jump into the deep end, and one where I think it's really important for them and the teams to really set realistic expectations. And that's why, yeah, like you say, Marty, a move like this today is even more impressive if it comes from such a young rider, because one, they've got the confidence to do so, and two, you know, they're doing with it incredibly well. The gap is now 1 minute 20, you know, and we've come into the last 20 kilometres, 10 kilometres even, and the gap is still at this distance. You know, she'll have a good chance of winning this race. So yeah, it's a big change for the young riders, but you know, we're seeing it on the men's side as well. You know, they're dealing with it, and it's really impressive.
There's also that thing as well, isn't there, that physiologically as a rider coming through, where you might come from a track background like Danique, but you might turn pro and all of a sudden you're riding for, as you said, 130, 150 kilometers, and all of a sudden something just clicks and you go, actually, you know, I'm feeling stronger as this goes on, and I'm feeling better as the race goes on, and the race distance comes up. And I think that's probably what's exciting when we get to see riders like Danique, and we get to see riders coming through that they're coming in from 18, 19, and we're seeing them, we just watch them grow and develop as a rider, because at 18 you still really, and you will know as as Olympic champion, a world champion, and now as a coach, and you know, a lot of the time at 18 you don't know what sort of rider you could be or what sort of rider you are. You might have an idea from racing a race of half that distance, but just doesn't, when you get to this sort of level, it just, something just clicks, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think if you get the opportunity to ride for a team that gives you that chance to almost take on the race yourself and really learn about your strengths as a bike rider or your weaknesses as a bike rider, that's also really important, to make mistakes as well, and to learn from every single race that you do to try and become the best bike rider that you can. And I think, you know, bad races, good races, you almost learn more from the bad races than you do the good, and it makes you into a rider that, you know, you see in your most experienced riders, you know, they wouldn't have been winning from day one. I remember an interview with Anna van der Breggen, and the first few races that she rode, again, she was just trying to hang on, and I think it's important for the young riders to know that as well. It's not you don't necessarily have to win from the get-go. It's just about learning and becoming a bike rider and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and working on your weaknesses and becoming, you know, whether it's a time trial rider or a sprinter or a climber, to really try and develop that attribute that you might have. And I think for Danique, to me, she looks like a really classy bike rider that could turn into a great time trial rider, or your Ellen van Dijk style. And again, she held on for 8th. Is she a great sprinter as well? So I think as well, it's important not to try and pigeonhole yourself, you know, when you're that young, into you know, one category either. Like you said, Marty, you know, you might have one race where you sprint really well, and then you get the opportunity to climb, and you find that actually you can climb as well. So yeah, it's just great that the young riders have the opportunity to ride races like this, and that freedom to be able to take on their opportunities like we're seeing Danique doing today.
We just saw Shirin van Anrooy just swing off the front there, and Audrey Cordon-Rago had a little word with her just as she went back. And the 19-year-old rider from Trek Segafredo, they've got two sprinters in there. They've got Amelie Deirdrickson, Letizia Paternoster, Audrey Cordon-Rago, the road captain. 1:17, 29 kilometers to go. And when we look, the difference here, you got Danique alone. The peloton behind, they are starting to they're starting to ramp this one up considerably, and that's what's putting this ride even more into perspective when you go back and you see how hard the peloton are working behind, and she's still sitting and holding them out of the saddle. Gives a little kick out of that turn. Now it's Valcar Travel and Service that are on the front here, and this Italian team, the sponsors really getting behind this team. Valcar, I think they're sort of a metal engineering kind of company in Lombardy, and then Travel and Service are a kind of car company, almost like a chauffeur kind of company are Travel and Service, but they really are getting behind that team. Sarah Tizet, WNT here for up towards the front. So Leylin Teutenberg, and in that we mentioned in that team the likes of Sarah Reiches, Marta Lack, Maria Giulia Confalonieri, Catherine Hammes, and Leylin is she's another one of the Teutenberg dynasty, you could almost call it.
Absolutely, she's really has learned off the best, hasn't she, with Ina Teutenberg. It looks like the rain is coming down now as well for the riders, so that's going to add a bit of stress, especially to that peloton behind, and probably play into Danique's hands, I would say, especially when the weather's bad. It's definitely harder, I think, to really motivate that chase behind and work together kind of with different teams, really motivate that chase when the weather's bad. And I think what you normally see, that gap will come down and then the peloton will sit up, and then there'll be talks as to whose role it is to try and chase, and that's why you do see that kind of yo-yo effect to a rider in front. But for Danique, she just needs to get into her own rhythm, which she's doing, and she's holding this gap at around 1 minute and 15 seconds.
20 kilometers is going to be mentally as a rider in this position solo through 20k to go. You got to think, right, do you then gas it again? Do you then open it up again and think, right, I've got to take this out? Or is it 15k to go, 10k to go? If you, as you said, if we go through 10k to go and she's still got a decent advantage, you just start to grow in belief.
Definitely, obviously, it's, as closer that you come to the finish line, the more you can start believing that you can win the race. And you can see the stress now. This pace is really heating up. It looks like it's WNT, Sarah Tizet WNT, Trek Segafredo as well, with Audrey Cordon-Rago really motivating her teammates to start this chase. Valcar Travel and Service in the pink colours on the right of the screens, really getting together as a unit with their whole team now coming to the front, and this is where this chase behind is really started.
Our solo leader, 1 minute 16 seconds is the gap from the GT Crush tune-up rider. Off the front, solo, putting herself in the shop window of the biggest teams in the world is Danique Hankeveld. And we are sure this young rider is going to be swept up by one of the big teams. Shirin van Anrooy back to the front for Trek Segafredo. You can see with the sunglasses just tucked into the front of the helmet, and Audrey, the teammate, French national champion, just keeping her motivated and just finding that little bit extra as Monex come through. And you've got Park Hotel Valkenburg, plenty of those pink jerseys for Valcar up towards the front. And I think when you look back to, I think La Course was one of the first races where, for me, and they had Daniel Campbell in the team for La Course, but that was where I started to see glimpses of how they could ride as a team. And Lisa Brennau up towards the front here for Sarah Tizit's little chats amongst the team here for them. Marta Lack takes over, Polish champion. She's got the black rain jacket over the top of that one today, though.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to Valcar Travel and Service, Marty, how they ride so well together as a unit, and I think it's always helpful if they have one almost superstar that you know, can pick up results for the team. It's always really disheartening when, you know, you seem to ride so well together as a unit and you just don't pick up those victories, and I think that's quite damning, and it kind of takes that real motivation out of your tail when, you know, you work so hard and you don't pick up those results. But for Valcar, you know, with a rider like Elisa Balsamo, that she's only 23 yet, she's been so consistent and she's so close, and, you know, she won GP Ottingen but so close to winning, you know, a World Tour race or a 1.1. She was 4th in Gate Wevelgem, 5th in the Oxyclean de Panne. So I think, again, they're just, you know, they're within reach of one of these big 1.1 or World Tour victories, and they're working super well together as a unit.
They are indeed. Here come Canyon SRAM, 3 to the front. So they had their you would say their protected rider, British champion Alice Barnes, who went down in a big crash on the cobblestones. And, it's just, we would hope, recover from that one onto the cobblestone section with 25 kilometers to go. What's your thoughts now as we hit the Brookstraat here? If you were gonna go for this one, try and split it the next time through this sort of section?
I think it's a really tough call because it's really hard to split without that wind and without the exposed sections. I think for the big teams, they're going to be trying to chase Danique, and then it will be a case of working for their sprinters. I think if you look back at the history of this race, especially obviously on the men's side, with this being the first edition for the women's, and looking at the team compositions, it seems that riders have brought their sprinters to ride today. So I think for the bigger teams, they'll try and make it as hard as possible by, you know, riding on the front, trying to close the gap to Danique. I think it will naturally come down now, especially through this cobbled section. And then I think it will be a case of, especially in the last 20 kilometres, lining it up for their sprinters and for the teams that potentially don't have that pure sprinter, like we saw with Team Bike Exchange in the Oxyclean Classic de Panne, where Grace Brown took that victory. We might see attacks coming in the final 10 kilometres or even in the last kilometre for riders who think they can, you know, chance their bets on a bit of a longer range finish. So I think, yeah, we're going to see fireworks, but for now I think the biggest motivation for these teams is to catch Danique back.
Our camera operator's having a hard time. You've really got a feel for them on the bike on a day like this. You could hear the distaste of the road furniture out there. For Sarah Tizit WNT, Lisa Brennau has been, and we know what she can do at the end of a race, but for them today, Maria-Giulia Confalonieri's got a good sprint on her as well, hasn't she, come the finish?
Yeah, really good sprint, and again, she's a rider I've raced with on the track as well, and she's had a really consistent year. She was 6th in GP Ottingen and she was 7th in Knocker Course. She's a fantastic lead out rider. We saw that in Gate Wevelgem and also in Flanders. She was 16th, so it'll be interesting actually whether the team give her that opportunity today and we see the roles reversed and potentially Lisa Brennauer leading out for Maria Confalonieri. So yeah, it'd be nice to see. I always like it when the teams give the other riders a chance, especially if they have been really consistent and working well, and this might be a race where they decide to do that and give the give the Italian rider that opportunity to sprint for herself, and maybe a rider like Lisa to lead her out. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting finish, and you can see the peloton behind now. I think that gap has gone down, Marty.
It's a long road, this one, long straight road, and Danique Hangeveld, the pressure goes off the front of the peloton. So our lone rider is just holding that gap over the peloton behind. They're happy, the big teams, with the makeup, just one solo rider off the front. Who are you going for today, Danny?
Oh, we're doing predictions, are we?
I'm still on a peloton requested ban on making predictions until I've built up some good karma. Apparently, I think is the best description. But you can make a prediction.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Marty predicted, I think it was Lisa Brennauer, wasn't it, in the Oxyclean de Panna, and she ended up puncturing with about 8 kilometres to go. So he's not allowed to predict anymore. But I've actually been quite good in my predictions. I did predict Marianne Vos. So who's my pick for today? I am going to go with Lorena Wiebes.
Okay.
She's due a bit of good luck. She had a bad crash in the first stage of the Healthy Aging Tour, and I'd like to see her up there. Her best result so far this year is 5th in the Nocca Corsa, where she actually she won the sprint for the group that came in behind the group in front, with Amy Peters, Grace Brown and Lisa Klein. Lotte Kopecky came in a little bit after that, and Lorena then won the sprint. So I'm going to go with DSM, Lorena Wiebes. They're looking good today. Suzanne Anderson's been, I think, team captain for them on the road. They were caught out in that crash where 3 of the team had to chase back. But we've seen Lorena up at for a lot of today, so I think she's super motivated for a victory.
It's a good call, and I think luck's one of the things. You know, luck's an interesting one because she definitely hasn't. She just hasn't had the luck so far, and it just shows sometimes, doesn't it? As a sprinter, sometimes you just need that little bit of luck, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And she's had, you know, in 2019 especially, she took so many victories. She took every stage of the Tour of Trongming Island. She won Omloop van Borselen, to name a few. And then in 2020, you know, again, she won De Panna, she won Hageland, so I think it'll be really nice for her to pick up a win in the new colours that Team DSM have this year. Obviously the former Sunweb team that she signed the contract with after coming out of Park Hotel in 2020. Sarah
Roy in the centre of your picture there in that gold, white and green Aussie Champions jersey, and you can see for Sarah, no arm warmers, no leg warmers, no jacket. That shows a rider for me that's ready for battle here.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think you can. It's always good to cross the line being ready as well, isn't it, Marty? You know, it's. You know, I think having leg warmers on, for example, for myself, I know I never felt like I was really in a bike race with leg warmers on. You know, I was one that would definitely start, even if it was really freezing cold, I'd use almost like a warm leg rub instead of having leg warmers on. It's a real rider's preference, especially if it rains as well, because generally with leg warmers, they just stay wet, and you're better off using like a warm leg rub or an oil to try and keep your legs warm. But she's getting ready for battle, that's for sure. But look at this gap, it's still 55 seconds, so it hasn't come down considerably. It has come down. I think that was due to the cobbled section and naturally the riders fighting for position, coming into the cobbles and riding faster over that section of road. But this is still a really good gap for the young Dutch rider.
It is. So if you have been following it with us so far this season, Danique Hangeveld, a real talent is this GT Crush rider. And we just saw Lorena Wiebes, Danny's pick for today, getting rid of her rain jacket to the teammate Alice Barnes in that white jersey down in the centre of your picture there. British national champion, just moving up, had a bit of a crash earlier on, sort of seemed to, as happened, just knocked the stuffing out of her for a while, and just she's done the right thing though, Danny, hasn't she? Just taken the time just to, as we said, just collect, just calm, just start to feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. And she obviously did her homework that it wasn't a crucial time to have to be at the front at all times, and just taken stock, probably taken on some nutrition and let her body just get back to it after the crash and set herself up for the finale.
And you see all the teams now starting to try and manoeuvre their sprinters into position. Don't forget, you've got Emma Norsgaard from Team Movistar. She's had a multiple bike change as the Movistar rider. But the teammates are on the front, and she has got a strong lead out today for the Movistar team. And there's Sarah Martin, you got Alicia Gonzalez, and you got Gloria Rodriguez Alba Teruel. Here's the Movistar team, but they've still got to get this rider back. 20 kilometers to go, and still holding 50 seconds is Danique Hangeveld. And there's going to be that point as well where the sprinters teams all start to look around at each other, just start to organise their lead outs, and start to think about this finish.
Yeah, that generally comes with around 10 kilometers to go for the teams, but at the moment the chase is on for Danique, and the gap is coming down now. It's at 45 seconds, so I'm going to call it, I think, unfortunately for Danique, especially in a race like today, and the fact that she has been out there for a long time, that she is going to get reeled back. I hope it's not the heartache like it was in the first stage of the Healthy Aging Tour, where she was literally caught with a couple of 100 meters to go. I do think it will be earlier than that, but like you say, Marty, this is now the opportunity for the riders to take their last look at the finish line as well, and set themselves up for the last lap. You can see they just went under the 3 kilometers to go banner. They will be given the bell this time with 1 lap to go. The last opportunities to take a look at the wind and how they're going to launch their sprint, how they're going to ride as a team come the finish, who's going to start the lead out and who's going to be last in line to take up that sprint. It's a long straight sprint come the finish, which generally means riders can go too early. They can see that finish line and not wait long enough, and that's really important as well to get the timing right. But for Danique, the gap is 40 seconds now, so it is coming down slowly as she goes under the 2 kilometers to go mark.
Are for you as a sprinter, if you were being protected and sort of shepherded in towards the finish, brought in towards a long sort of run-ins like this, sometimes more stressful and harder to control and lead out than one that's maybe a little bit more, you might have maybe a corner with 500 to go, or as we saw at the weekend with last week with 300 to go. Are these sprints almost harder to try and organise as a sprinter?
I think it depends what type of rider you are. If you're technically good, like a rider like Barbara Grischke, for example, on Team Movistar, she would love a more of a technical finish where she can get herself to the front and really whip around the bends and keep her team to the front. But for me, I think I would have preferred a finish like today, if I was a lead out rider, to really wind it up and use that kind of time trial high power that I had personally as a rider. So I think it's almost a rider preference. If you're good technically, or potentially a bit stronger in those sort of longer lead outs, that I could just personally wind up on a long road. But they can be more stressful. You can see more of a washing machine effect, where 1 minute a team's at the front and the next minute they're being swamped in a long finish like today.
As the GT Crush car comes up one more time here for 34 seconds, they'll start to pull that car out of the gap. Just the DS getting the opportunity here to give Danique Hangeveld some more encouragement. 18 kilometers to go, 35 seconds is your time gap. But this rider, you know what she can do. Great time trialist, clearly, is Danique. And the teams behind, the sprinters teams, Movistar, Trek Segafredo, Sarah Tizet, WNT, DSM, all starting to look to try and get those that lead out organised. And then you've got that scenario, Danny, on a finish such as this, and we can see that the peloton are coming into sight here as Danique comes through with 1 lap to go. And they're going to get the bell. She's going to get the bell ringing in her ears this time. Drops Lecole have come to the front as well. Those light blue colours, but 1 lap to go here for Danique Hangeveld from GT Crush. And still, you could see that team car has been pulled out of the gap. She's still at the moment got the Shimano neutral service car. So plenty of teams now, and this is the point where you get to in this race where some of the smaller teams, no disrespect to them, is where you decide, okay, we're just going to bring our sprinter up and just put them onto the Valcar lead out or the Movistar lead out, and let them freelance the sprint, and that's another skill as a sprinter.
It is, and it's generally the way forward for the smaller teams that don't have that strength and depth within a lead-out scenario, so they can just put their sprinter, like you said, Marty, on the back wheel of a lead-out of another team that they chance their bets on for a good finish or a good result, and hope that their leader can just hold on, and it gives them that opportunity to get up there in the results. But for Danique here, she's had such an incredible ride. She is about to be reeled in now. The gap's now 15 seconds, so you're going to see a peloton behind catching Danique, and that's where you can see the counter-attacks happen. I'm sure we're going to see some, but what a fantastic opportunity she's given to her sponsors as well today to be out there. You know, she's definitely been the most combative. She's been out there for the biggest length of time. We've seen the biggest time gap throughout the whole day from this rider. So for GT Crush Tune-Up Pro Cycling, it's been a great day for them, even though unfortunately she is about to be reeled in.
She's holding that gap at 22 seconds, and you can see the attack here. Just to note as well, there's been a lot in the media recently about bottles, and you can see that all the bottles and everything is going where the soigneurs are here. So this is the zone where everything is being managed. There's been quite a lot in the media, the fines and things that are now in place for littering. So all the riders getting rid of anything that they need to, where their soigneurs are and where their team helpers are. It's always worth pointing that out. Bike Exchange, Sarah Roy, the Aussie Champions jersey, not far from the front of this one. But remember this young rider's name, only her second race of the year. The Healthy Aging Tour was the other race that they've had. She almost snatched that first stage of this one, and this just shows what a classy young bike rider Danique Hangeveld is, and we are sure that she will be throughout this year and into next year riding her way up to the highest level of the women's pro peloton, because she deserves it. The way that she rides it, the gutsy manner in which she just goes out there at just 18 years old and just really throws down the gauntlet to the biggest teams in the world, and one of the biggest is Team Bike Exchange, and here she is making Bike Exchange and Movistar really have to work hard to pull her back.
This is really impressive for Danique. I almost spoke too soon, didn't I, Marty, as the gap has just crept up a little bit, just over your 20-second mark here, as it is Bike Exchange that are on the front, who have started this chase along with Movistar. Look at the way the peloton is lined out now. You can see the pace has really come into this group behind as they come into the last 16 kilometers of the race, and I think what we'll see as we come closer to the finish line, if Danique isn't caught, the riders and the teams will be looking at each other as if to say, well, who's going to chase and who's going to take on this responsibility when they all have a sprinter within this peloton. So for Danique, she just needs to stay calm, cool, calm and collected now, stay in her zone. You know, even we've seen it time and time again. We saw it with Annemiek van Vleuten and Cassian Nieuwedome, where the gap literally was only at about 15 seconds all day and they managed to hang on. So even when it comes down to really small time gaps, and if she was to look behind, she would probably be able to see the peloton behind, to never ever give up, because anything is possible.
And what we got to remember here, looking at this, it's sort of one against, we're getting a bit of help now, but it's kind of, it was one against one for quite a long time there in terms of Janneke Ensing from Team Bike Exchange. In terms of, if you look at the solo leader, she's been out there for quite a while. We've now got sort of one against four. Marta Lack just joining the chase here. I think it's Gloria Rodriguez from Movistar. We've got one against three here now. You
have, and as well, what I picked up from Elisa Longo Borghini's interview in Flanders is that the chase behind will only, these riders are only going to be going at say 70% effort because they don't want to be going any harder than, you know, the other teams. So I think it's not a real concerted chase where they're giving it absolutely everything they can on the front, and that gives Danique the opportunity to stay away. You know, you need these riders behind to really commit 100%, otherwise you know, we could see this young rider staying away all the way to the finish. There's only 14 kilometers to go now, Marty. They've got one cobbled section left, so naturally I think the pace will go up in the peloton, and that could be a good chance for them to catch this rider. But this has been the ride of the day for me. Again, she performed in Healthy Aging Tour, and she's performed again today, and I'm sure she will be picked up by a bigger team for next season.
There is the opportunity sometimes as well, if a team's got an opening, to see riders move from team to team during the year as well. We've just seen Emma Bogard go to Team Coupe for this season. And you see DSM coming through the centre, and DSM, would you say, need to put a rider right into the chase here? We're just seeing them come up. I think this is Esme Pepperkamp that's coming through here. But they potentially need to put a rider in the chase.
I think in the next few kilometres, if the gap's not going down under your 10-second mark, then that would be the opportunity. But I think for now they're just biding their time and waiting, and it's potentially a smart move to, you know, Movistar are chasing now obviously for Emma Jorgensen, but for Team DSM they're just waiting and waiting, and hopefully they'll time it to perfection. I think what we do see with Team DSM, or Sunweb as we've known them in the past, is that they always have a fantastic lead out. You know, we see them come from back to the front within seconds, and it's something that they've almost you know, it's almost a trademark move from them that they've been able to do over the years. So yeah, I'd actually love them to take this victory today. They haven't had a big victory yet this year. We've seen a few of the other teams take a big win, but for them I think it will really help them in the for the rest of the season to, you know, really boost their morale for the races that we've got coming up.
13 kilometers to go. Your lone leader, Danique Hangeveld, still holding just 11 seconds. It's sort of yo-yoing a second here and a second there from the GT Crush rider just off the front. But if you've been with us over the last couple of weeks, Dwarsdorf Vlaanderen was one of them. Ronde van Vlaanderen with Annemiek van Vleuten, where we sat, didn't we, Danny, at this point, looking back and seeing that peloton just behind, and they at times just couldn't close that gap.
Absolutely, and that's why I just said there for Danique, she just needs to keep going and almost not look back, because there's absolutely no point looking back for her. She's been out there for so long that even if she was to get back into the peloton, the chances are that, you know, that's it for her for today. So she just needs to keep looking forward, keep focused on her own effort, and hope that she can get to the line. And exactly like you said, in Dwarsdorf Vlaanderen, where Cassie Nieuwedome and Annemiek van Vleuten were off the front, they never had more than 30 seconds all day, and at some points the gap came down to 10 seconds and they managed to stay away. So it's really important for riders to not give up and keep going, because you do see that yo-yo effect in the peloton behind, especially when you get closer to the finish line and teams are looking at each other as if to say, you chase, no, you chase. And it takes that kind of, you know, commitment from one team to really take it on their shoulders.
Is there also then at the front that sort of that double-edged sword, in the way that if she is sitting at 10 seconds, they're like, right, we've got her, and then you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Or you keep her out at 10 seconds and hope that kind of in your lead out in literally the last couple of kilometers you catch them perfectly. And we see that a lot on the men's side, especially with a breakaway that you generally see of the day. Actually, sometimes the peloton don't want to catch a solo rider too soon, because then it gives the opportunity for other teams to launch counter-attack. So I think for the teams that have got that pure sprinter, actually it might be in their best interest to leave Danique hanging out there, and know, so for a team like DSM, for example, that, you know, if she's only got 10 seconds, once they get to the front and they start their lead out, that she will be caught. So that's another dynamic to this sort of scenario as well.
Alice Barnes just on the back here for Canyon SRAM. So 11k to go. We know if Alice is suffering the after effects of that crash, but also Alice is one of those riders that you'll be at this point, you'll see her at the back, and then 5 seconds later she's at the front.
Yeah, she really is a rider like that. So I wouldn't even want to guess that she's suffering from the crash. I guess if you were to put your money on, you'd say that she would be, especially at a stage like now. But like you say with Alice, 1 minute she's at back, the next minute she's at the front winning bike races. So she's never a good one to bet on. I'd love to see her back at the front though, especially after suffering that crash. She's had a good start to the season. She's looking great, especially in the sprint. So hopefully she'll get herself to the front when she needs to.
So that front of that peloton, there's a lot of the Valcar jerseys. Is that Elisa Balsamo just being brought up here on the left? Alice Barnes just going to latch onto the back wheel now of Elisa Balsamo. So watch the Valcar jerseys as they come up towards the front. They got one rider on the front, and it does look inside 10k to go. They've just upped the pressure just a little bit more, and unfortunately, that looks like that could be the acceleration that ends the solo effort here of Danny Hangeveld. And I'm going to glance at the front of the peloton, but still persisting with this one, still keeping going. And it just shows, doesn't it, Danny, that it ain't over till they're right past you.
No, it's really not. And she's had such a fantastic ride today. I do think she is going to be swept up. But again, incredible ride. She's not even looking over her shoulder. She's keeping going all the way until the peloton catch her. So yeah, phenomenal ride. She's been out there for around 30 kilometers solo, so she's got that strength, and I think that'll give her even more confidence into the next few races.
Bella de Gast on the back here. So a few of our sprinters here, and as we get in towards the closing stages of this one. Just our graphic has gone to 0 on the top. Just ignore that one. You've still got a way to go. As our head-on shot here of the GT Crush rider, Danique Hangeveld. What a ride for this rider today on her own, going solo. As you can see Balsamo just starting to move up on the outside of the group. The teammates for her, the Valcar Travel and Service teams, who's mentioned the Madrid Challenge last year. It was a great lead out by them. They've got one rider here in the centre doing a fair amount of work now to try and bring this one back under control. Head of the race though, still there. You see Lisa Brennauer, so the Ceratizit WNT riders. They've got the big jackets and it's Marta Lack, the Polish national champion, that's on the front for Ceratizit WNT. It's now upping the pressure. Canyon SRAM. Where are they? Just having a look around the front of the group here. Bike Exchange, Sarah Roy still very much evident at the front, but is that Ilaria Sanguinetti potentially it's doing the work here for Valcar Travel and Service to just get this under control. But what a ride as they hit the cobblestones for the final time. And you've got to say chapeau, Danique Hangeveld. What a gutsy ride again by the GT Crush rider. Gets swept up by the peloton, and we now have a bunch sprint here. Lining up in the Scheldeprijs, the first edition of this race. Someone is going to write their name into the history books at the end of this one. The 136.2 kilometer race today, 3 laps of this 16.7 kilometer finishing circuit, and some of the biggest names of the year so far, the likes of Emma Northgaard, who's still hunting for that first victory of the season. Her Movistar teammates have done a huge job to get this race back under control. Lorena Wiebes for Team DSM, Elisa Balsamo for Valcar Travel and Service, Sarah Roy potentially for Team Bike Exchange, all now have the opportunity to set themselves up here. And it's the Aroma Italia Basso bikes, Viano colours that go off the front. And Danny, as you were saying, a lot of the time this is just the reason why the peloton will just leave our breakaway out there, even if it's just one solo rider, for as long as possible, because as soon as they come back, this is what happens. The counters start to go.
Yeah, absolutely, Marty. So that's what you're seeing now with the counter attacks. Now Danique has been caught, and she did such a phenomenal job to stay out for as long as she did, and especially into that cobbled section. I think that would have been the motivation for her to get that round that right-hand corner. first, so that she wasn't swamped before that cobbled section. She can keep herself out of trouble on the cobbles, and you can still see Alice Barnes at the back of the peloton, and we've got a good gap here now from this rider. At 7.2 kilometers to go, the teams will be getting together now for their lead out situations to get their sprinters in the best position coming into the final. It's a straight 2 kilometer run in, a corner with 2 kilometers to go, and then it's pretty straight all the way into the finish of this first edition of the Scheldeprijs for women. It's a special race to take the first ever victory of, and who's it going to be today?
Letizia Borghese that's off the front, they're saying here for EuropeTour. It's Borghese just taking this opportunity now to attack. Stage winner in the Giro Rosa is Borghese. That's her biggest win in her pro career, but now just trying to pull this late move here is Borghese. It's a good move off the front. As you're starting to see a few rain spots on the lens of the camera. They just bounce across this cobbled section. Alice Barnes still close to the back there for Canyon SRAM. Neve Bradbury not far away from her. So not far away, wasn't far away from where Dani Kangaveld made her move, wasn't it, for Borghese?
No, really good move here from Borghese. You can see the peloton behind. She's just had a glance over her shoulder to see what sort of gap she's got. But for Borghese, she's got to just put her head down now and really give it all she's got. It is an all or nothing type move with 6.2 kilometers to go. The teams will be getting together behind. You can see Trek Segafredo coming together as a unit here. Canyon SRAM as well. Now maybe they might have lost Alice Barnes, but this is actually the big wide road. She could have been waiting for her moment to move up. This is the time to move up on a wider road before they come into the narrower sections of the town.
Balsamo's moved up for Valcart. Looks like Consoni might be the lead out. There's Barnes in that British Champions jersey. That bright white jersey really stands out in the peloton, doesn't it? That jersey of the British champion. Letizia Borghese though for EuropeTour. Basso Bikes. Oh, rider down at the back here. So rider 223, Bronwyn McGregor for LVIV. So just trying to get the gears back on. So that's a shame for Bronwyn McGregor.
Nice bit of help there from a spectator on the road.
Gets her way, gets herself going. Oh. Sounds like we've got a bit of an issue with the bike there, I think. From the sound of it.
Just getting to the line, I think you'll see the repeat of this crash now.
Oh. Yeah, just get rider in front of her, just came across, just touch your wheels. And this is sort of the points as well. If you're going down late on in the race like this, just just pedal in towards the finish. It's back to the front. Borghese, Letizia Borghese, still just dangling off the front of the peloton. We start to see the lead outs coming. Next G are coming through. They've got the likes of Charlotte Cool in there, who's got quite a fast finish on her, as Charlotte Cool for Next G. As Balsamo's lead out in the centre. Borghese still persisting with this one. So the EuropeTour team, Basso Bikes, we saw them team in the likes of Trofeo Alfredo Binda. Good to see Borghese off the front. That Giro Rosa stage victory, her biggest win in her career so far. 5 kilometers to go now in towards the finish.
Less than 5 kilometers to go. You can see the riders trying to get from side to side, just try and nervously move up from the peloton. And like you just mentioned there, Marty, riders will be getting nervous. The legs are tired. You have to stay super focused in a final like today.
You do indeed, and they just start to up the pace. It's Monex that bring it back under control. So they Monex have got Arlena Sierra and Jade Tiolis in there, just on the left there, that sort of pink and blue jersey. Sandra Alonso from Vizcaya, just moving up on the wheel of Sarah Roy, and a rider that got up there some sprints in the Giro Rosa last year, did Alonso, and that, just as we were saying earlier on, Danny, just a rider there for Vizcaya, one of the smaller teams, just getting herself up towards the wheel of the bike exchange rider there, so just freelancing that sprint nicely there, the Vizcaya rider.
Absolutely perfect. Just pick a rider's wheel who you think and you're going to chance is going to be up there in the finish, and just try and stick to it. You can see Team DSM now doing what they do best. They're coming to the front with just over 4 kilometers to go. You've got the Trek Segafredo team, the Movistar team working together now for Emma Jorgensen. Lisa Brennauer's on the front for WNT, Sarah Tizet WNT, Abby May Parkinson, the Lotto Soudal rider in the red jersey, now coming towards the front of this group.
Confalonieri didn't like that, did she?
She didn't, no.
There's Lisa
Get out
Brennauer
of our lead out.
Yeah, you've got to, that's it. You've got to, when you've got Lisa Brennauer here and Confalonieri right on the wheel, and she won't want to miss out on the opportunity to have a go at this sprint. DSM for Lorena Wiebes on the left of your picture, and those black jerseys with the 2 light blue stripes going down the centre. Can Lorena Wiebes take this one today for Team DSM? Emma Norsgaard from Team Movistar, you've got to say, have done a phenomenal job for Emma Norsgaard today, and you can hear, Danny, just the roars and the shouts of the teams as you try to control the lead outs through these corners. Easier said than done a lot of the time, isn't it?
Absolutely is. It's really stressful in a peloton. You can go from the front to the back, you can lose teammates, you're trying to communicate at such high speeds. Now the riders will be riding over 40 kilometers an hour. Sana Khan, cyclocross specialist from the Plantapura team, now calling it a day for her ride with 3.3 kilometers to go. Just talking maybe a problem with the bike potentially. But let's see what's happening at the front. It's Lotto Soudal now who are on the front of the race to start this lead out into the finish.
3.1 kilometers to go, and it's some individual riders now on the front here. So you've got the team of Lotto Soudal on the front. You've got the B pink jerseys in there as well. We're starting to see the jerseys of Team Bike Exchange up towards the front. Danielle Campbell is the first lead out here. Sarah Roy perhaps just a little bit far out here at the moment for Team Bike Exchange, but Campbell now ups the pressure on the front here for Bike Exchange. For me, Sarah Roy on her own, but Sarah Roy, we know what she does as an individual sprinter as well. She doesn't always need the big lead out for a sprint, Sarah Roy.
No, she doesn't, and she's fantastic at getting herself in the right position as well. She's taken the Australian National Championship. She's come back from an injury actually in the last 18 months, and she's really taken her time on her comeback and worked on her weaknesses, and it would be great to see the Australian rider pick up a result today. She's had some fantastic teamwork from the rider that we're seeing now on the front, Danielle Campbell, who's had a fantastic start to the season and working incredibly hard for the Team Bike Exchange.
Big lead out here from the rider from Team Bike Exchange. Can she deliver? Sarah Roy to the victory today through 2 kilometers to go. And the teams of Movistar, the team of DSM, Alice Barnes here for Canyon SRAM. Looks like that crash has just taken a little bit too much out of Alice Barnes today, unfortunately, for Canyon SRAM. Would be a big favourite, hence why the camera's just focusing on Alice as she just knocks off the pressure, knocks off the tempo. Roy is in position though. Movistar straight down the centre. They're waiting for that Flamme Rouge across the road as Suzanne Anderson just moves up on the inside there for Team DSM, but it looks like Barbara Groriski on the front here for Movistar, right with Emma Norsgaard right on the wheel.
Barbara Grishki always up there in a lead out. She's fantastic at moving her teammates up to the front. It's Team DSM now as well coming to the front. You're hearing shouts and screams from the peloton as the riders are trying to get their leaders into position into the last kilometre of the race. It's a really straight final now, so the teams have got to try and time this perfectly for their riders to not go too soon. Coming under the Flamme Rouge, 1 kilometre to go.
And it's Team Movistar that have got control over the front of the peloton now. Look at this pressure. As you see, Amelie Didriksen for Trek Segafredo. There's Lorena Wiebes for DSM. Here come Trek. It's Letizia Paternoster with Amelie Didriksen right on the wheel. Lisa Brennauer poised and ready, as is Sarah Roy. Norsgaard right on the wheel, as here goes Suzanne Anderson with Wiebes right there. Norsgaard is going to latch onto the wheel here of Lorena Wiebes. Alonso just on the outside. It's DSM and Suzanne Anderson through the centre. The pink jersey of Elisa Balsamo is also there. Emma Norsgaard now, is she going to open up the pressure? But Lisa Brennauer now hits the front for Sarah Tizic WNT. They're leaving it late, but here comes Sarah Roy straight down the centre here for Team Bike Exchange. Norsgaard is there. Here comes Lorena Wiebes over the top. The sprint starts. Wiebes, Roy and Norsgaard. It's Wiebes and Norsgaard. Here comes Elisa Balsamo through the centre, but it's between Norsgaard and Wiebes. Is Wiebes going to take it? Yes, she is. Lorena Wiebes takes it for Team DSM. First victory of the season. And Danny, you predicted it.
I did. I think these riders are going to ask me to keep predicting them for these races. Wow, what a sprint that was for Lorena Wiebes. Again, I did call it out earlier, and today I just thought the team were really looking on fire today, working well. They were riding through the peloton as a unit. She just said finally there. So really happy for Lorena to take her first victory of 2021.
Wow, what a ride there from Team DSM. You got a hats off on that one. That was a great sprint at the end. It looked like a tough finish though, Danny, the way that it took everyone a while to decide when they were going to go there.
It was a really hard one to call. Again, it's the first ever Scheldeprijs for women, so generally, you know, it's a bit of a gamble as to how best to play it out. They did have 3 laps previously to try and suss out as and when to launch their sprint, but Team DSM timed it to perfection. It's a really tough one when it's such a straight run in to the finish to know when to come together as a team, but they've done it today, and it's Lorena's first win. Fantastic to see.
Yeah, phenomenal. As we said, didn't quite have the luck so far this season. Let's take a look back at this one. Brennauer hit the front there. Danny, it was a tough finish. Sarah Roy was almost, you can't see, was almost waiting, and then Wiebes got right on the wheel of Sarah Roy.
Sarah Roy was just put on the front a bit too early for Team Bike Exchange. Was around 250 metres to go, and Lorena just waited and waited until that 200-metre mark to launch her attack, and it was Emma Norsgaard from Movistar versus Lorena Wiebes in that finish. They were really neck and neck to the finish line, but it was Lorena Wiebes that just pit Emma Norsgaard to the finish.
Oh yeah, Balsamo. There's that Emily Mobo getting in there for Drops Le Col as well. I think it is great sprint. There's Balsamo. There's Lisa Klein for Canyon SRAM. Good to see plenty of the names that we picked out today, getting up there in the sprint. And Lorena Wiebes, that shows just how much it means to Lorena Wiebes to take that one. There's Charlotte Cool from Next G up there as well. But a huge, that emotion for Lorena Wiebes. Don't forget as well the men's race. If this is anything to go by, you're going to want to watch that one. The men's race with Matt Stevens and Adam Blythe. That's 2 p.m. British summertime, and that's 3 p.m. in Central European summertime. And then stage 3 of Etsulia, the Tour of the Basque Country, that starts at 2:30 in the afternoon British summertime. Make sure you tune in on Eurosport GCN for those ones. But yeah, if this race is anything to go by, and what makes that even more special, Danny, history writing, first ever winner of the Scheldeprijs, which is great. But what a team performance from DSM today. Shout them out again: Julia Suk, Esme Pepperkamp, Wilma Olafsson, Pfeiffer Georgie, and Suzanne Anderson. And that's what, as you said, you can't do it alone anymore, especially in this situation as a sprinter.
No, definitely not. And they really came together as a unit today, and that was why I actually, called Lorena out as my prediction for today. And here, I think we're going to hear from her now.
Met jouw eerste zege dit seizoen, de allereerste winnares van de Scheldeprijs. Dit moet fantastisch zijn voor jou. Hoe heb jij de sprint beleefd?
Ik kon vrij laat mijn sprint openen, maar dat was achteraf wel goed, denk ik. Ja, het was vrij hectisch, de hele dag wel, maar het is mooi om het zo af te sluiten.
Zoals gezegd, het was een hele nerveuze race. Hoe komt dat, denk je?
Nou ja, wij hadden op voorhand verwacht dat er veel waaiers zouden zijn. En dan is het peloton altijd wel wat hectischer. Dus uiteindelijk viel het nog mee, maar dat maakt het wel extra hectisch.
Er waren ook heel veel valpartijen op de kasseistroken. Heb jij daar iets van gemerkt vandaag?
Ja.
Was je betrokken? Of?
Nee, gelukkig kon ik er telkens net omheen. Eentje weet ik niet. Ik kon net overeind blijven, maar gelukkig op de fiets gebleven.
Maakte dat voor jou de wedstrijd extra hard vandaag?
Ja, vooral dat je heel erg oplettend moest zijn. Dat wel. Je moest goed de focus erbij houden. Maar het was een mooie wedstrijd.
One question in English as well. How can you describe today's race?
Today was very and yeah, it was a nice race. There were wind on some parts, but not enough to really make the difference. And at the end, the sprint was also chaotic, but nice to win this race.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Today's winner, Lorena Wiebes. That's the sprint. So Norsgaard, Balsamo in there. You can see Elena Sierra in the background, Sarah Roy, Emily Moberg, Sandra Alonso, Emily Deirdrickson as well, Charlotte Cool. We'll get a confirmation of our top 10 though. And DSM, as a sprinter, just having that, getting yourself off the mark in a season when you know, we talk about 2019, the volume of victories that she took there, and that will be a big one for her. The highlights of what has been a great first edition of Scheldeprijs, and it was a cold start for the riders, and got themselves underway. And Team Crush, they almost crushed it again, didn't they, today, Danny, that one? Sorry.
They absolutely did. That was terrible, Marty. But we saw Danique Hangeveld again launch an attack off the front. She was away for around 30 kilometres of the race. She just got caught in the last 10 kilometres. Fantastic ride from her. We saw.
Yeah, this was the first big split of the day, though, wasn't it? And this looked decisive when we came on air.
Yeah, it did, Marty. We saw a lot of the key players, the key teams making it into this move, but it did come back, and this is the first section of cobbles that we saw.
Yeah, that was the big crash, and you just saw the riders going down there, and Alice Barnes was one of them, and the sort of ricochet effect that happens, and unfortunately we see Alice on the ground here, and we saw her rolling in towards the finish, and it took her a while to get back in. You see Lisa Brennau just talking into the radio there as well to just calm things down on the front.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's just almost the etiquette of when a crash happens to let the group come back. But unfortunately for Alice Barnes, we just saw her sit up with around 2 kilometres to go. I think the crash took it out of her, but this is when Danique launched her attack.
I think there might be a contract offer in the post from quite a few teams after this ride today. But this 18-year-old Dutch rider really is making a name for herself this season, and she's right out as a Dutch rider, right out of the mould of the big champions such as Ellen van Dijk, and really threw down the challenge to everyone today, and it's gonna pay off for her at some point, isn't it, Danny?
Yeah, definitely. You know, she's taken the confidence. She'll take the confidence, and then confidence breeds confidence. So yeah, it's a fantastic move. She's done this sort of move twice now. We saw it in Healthy Aging Tour as well in stage 1. So I think we're going to just see bigger things to come from this rider.
Indeed, and there was the chat. There was the, as we hit the cobblestones for the final time, great lead outs, great chases, and it was Movistar that came through to the front. Sarah Martin on the front for Emma Norsgaard. There's the Trek Segafredo lead out just moving up, and it did come down. The DSM were very, very stealthy in their lead out today. You can see here the final lead out for Lorena Wiebes. You've got to say, Danny, really very, very measured ride from DSM to deliver Lorena Wiebes to this one today.
It was, and they waited and waited. They didn't get involved in that chase too early on, and they've just really timed it to perfection and rode really well as a unit today. You can see here Sarah Roy from Team Bike Exchange took the sprint on a little too early. She was left out there, and this is where Lorena Wiebes launched her sprint alongside Emma Norsgaard. They were neck and neck all the way to the line, and it was Lorena Wiebes that able to launch to the line to take the victory.
Yeah, great ride. You just saw her kind of meerkatting a little bit, didn't you? Up, just okay, going to take Sarah Roy's wheel here, and Brennauer came through and just kept looking up and looking up, just to make sure that she timed it to absolute perfection there. And Emma Norsgaard, who said in her post-race interview the other day, I can sprint a bit. Sprinting very well for someone that can sprint a bit. Emma Norsgaard.
Very, very well.
And this, but you know, for Movistar, they're putting a lot. They really are coming together for Emma, though, aren't they? This season, with the experience of a Barbara Grabowski and Sarah Martin, who the young Spanish rider, is a great lead out as well. They're working together for it's not taking them long to get this together, because we're only a couple months into the season here, so it's impressive to see. And we get our little aerial shot here. We should get our top 10 shortly as well in this one, but what a ride from them. And the conditions favourable for quite a while today. Wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be when we came on air.
No, it wasn't too bad, was it, Marty? And it was cold. We saw the riders wrapped up. It was quite tough to pick some riders out this morning when we saw those really cold temperatures. But yeah, it did rain, but it dried up, and it wasn't too bad, like you said.
So I hope if you were with us for our entire coverage of Scheldeprijs today, thanks for your company. Hope you have enjoyed. Get 100, and I think we had nearly 115 kilometers of our race coverage today, which was great. But as we said, don't forget, join the men's race with Matt Stevens and Adam Blythe later, and also the Tour of the Basque Country stage 3. Loads more cycling coming here on Eurosport and GCN Plus. Unfortunately, we haven't got the. We were expecting to have Paris-Roubaix this weekend, but that's now been postponed until later on in the year due to COVID. But we will, our next, if you're enjoying the Women's World Tour this season, we're back for Amsterdam Gold on the 18th. Let's take you through your top 8. So Lorena Wiebes, Emma Norsgaard, Elisa Balsamo, Emily Moberg, Lisa Klein, Elena Sierra, Sarah Roy, and Sandra Alonso is your top 10. So that looks at top 8. That looks about as far as we've got so far. So we picked out. I've got to say, Sandra Alonso from Biscaya. We saw her last year in Giro Rosa. She's impressing me, the Biscaya rider. That's a good ride from her. She'll be pleased with that 8th spot as a kind of we saw her on the run in, just finding her way onto Sarah Roy's lead out.
She did, and exactly what we were talking about earlier. For the smaller teams, sometimes that's their best chance to pick up a result.
It is, and it looks like we're going to leave it there. Thanks for your company. We'll see you soon. From Martin McDonald and Danny Rowe, look after yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.